10 years ago, a sudden terror grips the city as people look toward the sky. Since suddenly, above Tokyo, people awakened mana, allowing talented mages to chase wealth and fame through dungeons. A mage's talent is judged by their mana color. While most possess one, a rare few hold two, like Kurosaki Kai, a powerful two-color mage. Now, he faces a demonic creature as it unleashes its terrifying, realizing the beast will not run back down. Creature charges the mage, who instantly activates his skill and hurls a demonic spear at the beast. The beast is hit directly by the spear and monster, which crashes heavily to the ground. After the kill, Kurosaki Kai moves to collect the monster's drop. Meanwhile, Kurosaki Rei stands lost in thought in a corner until Kai tosses the drop at him, demanding he be more attentive. As he approaches Kai, the level 89 Purple King and one of the strongest mages reminds the porter to work faster. He is incredibly rare in this world, Kurosaki Rei, a level 1 colorless porter. Despite his lack of mana color, Rei refuses to give up on his dream of becoming a mage, which is why he had to work as a porter, hoping that through his brother's pity he might one day awaken an ability and hold on to that thin thread of hope. Driven by that hope, Rei accompanied his brother into the depths of the dungeon. As they explored, they eventually arrived at a massive imposing door, and the group sensed that the boss chamber was right behind it.
The party expected an easy win.
They pushed through the threshold and began to scan the room, only to stop dead in their tracks. Blocking their path was Kronos, the terrifying god of time and space. Unfazed, Kai prepared his Demoni Mortis skill and launched it, sending a deadly strike directly at the deity, but Kronos simply reached into subspace, effortlessly repelling the attack with a sword he pulled from thin air. The god's complete lack of reaction leaves Kai paralyzed with fear. The god releases a crushing pressure through his mere gaze, and the weight of his divinity makes Kai feel unable to defend himself. The mage is struck down instantly. The group watches in horror as their powerful Purple King is erased by a single blow. Kurosaki Rei watches his brother's death, panicking as he desperately tries to grasp this nightmare. He stares at Kronos, wondering if such a legendary mage could truly be defeated so easily. The others flee the room in terror, but they are hunted down and eliminated before they can escape. Kurosaki Rei collapses to the ground, shattered by the carnage. Then Kronos calls out to him, laughing as he mocks the colorless man. Rei clenches his fist, refusing to accept that his journey has ended with nothing. He grabs his sword, standing up with trembling hands for one final stand. Kronos, the god of time and space, finds it amusing that nobody dares to stand against him. Even as a colorless porter, Rei tries to remain steady and refuses to give up, but the god offers no mercy. In a devastating, blinding strike, Rei is broken instantly, leaving him unable to even react to the sheer force. The god finishes him off with a merciless blow and realizes we went a little too to activate his rewind skill, pulling Rei back from the brink of annihilation just to strike again with a terrifying wave of flames. Kronos laughs, mockingly granting Rei a few moments to think before the end. Desperate, Rei eyes a discarded sword, hoping that even a mediocre blade can strike a god. Thus he grabs the weapon, prepared to face the end. He realizes the blade can dissipate the flames of despair, the god's devastating attack. He holds his breath, so he charges at Kronos, even as the intense heat begins to scorch his very flesh. Rei endures the agony, pushing through the burning pain. The god watches from a distance, almost certainly unconcerned, until his expression shifts to shock as Rei drives the sword deep into his chest, burning and broken. Rei feels the impact of his strike, but Kronos only laughs and activates his rewind skill once more. Terror grips Rei as he realizes he has been pulled back once again. The god heals instantly, dismissing Rei's desperate attempt as mere fine entertainment. Rei drops his sword and collapses to his knees, consumed by the fear that his struggle was all for nothing. He wonders if this is how it ends, until a sudden system screen flashes right before his eyes, warning that a god of time and space has been detected, and the seal on a black skill is breaking. Kronos begins to sense something is wrong, but the system screams that Rei has acquired the steel skill and successfully stolen the god's very power. Rewind. Stunned by the impossible notifications, Rei acts on instinct and activates the stolen skill to change everything. Rei's strike shatters the fabric of space and time, leaving the furious god screaming at the audacity of a mere human. The system issues a final, chilling warning: regression is about to begin. Regression is executed. Throwing, time itself begins to unravel, dragging Rei away from the chaos of the battlefield. He is cast through the currents of time, sent back to a moment of his own choosing. Ri awakens in a bed, gasping as he tries to process if the life or death struggle was just a nightmare. He approaches a mirror and freezes. The reflection staring back belongs to his much younger self, and he stares at his youthful face, wondering if this is all a dream, until he turns toward the window. Looking outside, he sees the sky, but the view brings a sudden, jarring realization. The inverted castle in the sky is pure white, a sight it hasn't been for 7 long years. The darkness that once stained its walls has vanished, proving that the regression was real. The memory of the god of time and space lingers, making the reality sink in. Ri checks his phone and sees the date. It's exactly as he suspected, and then, looking in the mirror, the reflection of his younger self confirms the truth. He has truly regressed 7 years into the past. He quickly calls up his skill window and scans the list of his abilities to see what he kept. The rewind skill is gone, but his steal skill remains a vital tool for his new life.
The stolen rewind power has vanished.
Even without it, Ray knows that with the steal skill, everything can finally change. Ri stands before the Mage Association headquarters, the agency responsible for supervising all dungeon missions. Everything looks strangely pristine. The realization makes perfect sense, but his thoughts are quickly interrupted by someone calling him a colorless. Oik and Goto, the lackeys of his brother Kai, approach him with mocking grins. They are exactly as he remembers them, little more than henchmen for his brother. Goto grabs him in a mock hug, asking if he's back for another failed exam, while Oik reminds him that a colorless will always be a nobody. They aren't wrong, as this isn't his first time attempting this test, a cycle of failure he's repeated countless times. He forcefully pushes Goto away, telling them to stop bothering him. As he walks away, the 2 lackeys are left baffled by his sudden change in attitude. Meanwhile, at the registration desk, Rank B Mage and Inspector Hina Reina is reviewing the candidate list. She spots a familiar name and stares, wondering if he has actually returned. Taking a deep breath, she warns him that he might die in a dungeon one day, but Ray just laughs, confident that this time everything will change. Ri stares at the portal entrance before finally nodding his agreement. As he steps into the dungeon, Ray knows he must collect 3 goblin magic stones to pass a simple task for a mage, or so he thinks. But the easy path vanishes when a sinister presence approaches, a nightmare from his past life. It is a Red Hood goblin, a level 37 monster that has no business appearing in a level 1 dungeon. Hina Reina draws her sword in a desperate attempt to protect him, screaming for him to run. Ri remains frozen, knowing the gap in their levels is too vast for her to survive. In his previous life, the Red Hood was her undoing. The creature's ferocity is overwhelming, forcing Hina onto the defensive as fear begins to take hold. With a brutal blow, the goblin shatters her guard and throws her aside. Ray remembers this moment, how she sacrificed herself to buy him time. In the original timeline, those injuries forced her into early retirement from being a mage. He realizes that his own past incompetence is what ruined her career. But this time, Ray is not the weak porter he used to be. He is ready to fight. As the Red Hood goblin lunges toward him, he hurls his dagger, testing the creature's legendary physical enhancement skill, but the blade bounces off without doing any real damage. The attack failed. Determined, Ray leaps forward and lands a heavy punch, right in the middle of the goblin's face, but it's not enough. Instead of recoiling, the monster grows even more furious and prepares a devastating strike. The goblin suddenly falters, overwhelmed by a strange sensation as Ray's system activates, instantly stealing its physical enhancement skill. Now possessing the monster's strength, Ray's power begins to surge. Ri locks eyes with the Red Hood and strikes immediately, crushing the monster into worthless meat. After eliminating it, he realizes just how incredible his ability to steal skills truly is. Hina Reina approaches him, breathless and stunned by his display, and asks how he managed to do it. Ray feels the weight of her gaze, struggles to find an answer, panicking internally, deciding it is safer to hide his true nature and claim it was mere coincidence. The inspector is furious at his lie, but seeing the chaos in the dungeon, she suggests canceling the exam entirely because the irregular developments have become too dangerous. Hina Reina explains she needs to report this incident to the agency. As Ray turns, notices something on the ground. While picking up a drop left by the Red Hood, he realizes it isn't time for irregulars to appear yet. He tells Hina Reina he still needs 2 more monostones. Furious, Hina Reina turns on him and yells that now is not the time to be thinking about loot. However, a presence begins to approach from the shadows, prompting Ray to what it is. He spots a group of goblins arriving at the worst possible moment, the interruption he needed, right? Now, the monsters charge, but they are obliterated in a single blow before they can even strike. Shocked once again, Ray picks collect the dropped monostones and asks the inspector if he can keep them, though how to respond. Later, at the main headquarters of the Mage Association, Hina Reina hands the Mage Association a report. Clutching his new license, Ray stares at it in disbelief. After 10 long years of being nothing more than a porter, the moment he finally becomes a mage is finally here. But his moment of reflection is cut short when Hina Reina asks him to check the monostone exchange details. Ri knows monostones are valuable energy sources that can be sold to the association. Valuable energy sources. But when he sees the payout for defeating the Red Hood, his eyes widen in shock. He can't believe he's earned $3 million, a fortune far beyond anything he ever imagined. With a quick request in mind, Ray heads toward a reserved area near a portal. Ri raises his hand and confirms the area is indeed reserved. Entering a solo dungeon was once an impossible dream. He feels a swell of relief that Hina Reina is safe this time, knowing he can finally change the future. However, the peace is shattered when a sudden mana hand skill strikes from the shadows. But before Ray can move, Goto and Oik approach, demanding to know why a lowly colorless thinks he can trespass in a reserved zone. Ri maintains his ground, explaining that his recent exam success gives him the right to enter a solo dungeon. But Goto isn't listening. Oik, however, has a much more aggressive plan in mind. Oik lunges forward and grabs Ray's head. Furious, he demands that Ray show his abilities immediately. Ri realizes Oik's mana hand compresses energy into a physical form, making raw strength alone insufficient. He needs a tactical response, quickly planting his feet. Ri launches a desperate headbutt directly into Oik's face, shattering the man's nose. Ri manages to steal the mana hand ability, and because of this, the technique deactivates instantly as Oik and Goto stare in confusion. Ri immediately activates his new skill and grabs Oik with full force. Oik breaks into a cold sweat, wondering if Ray truly is an awakened mage. Seeing his partner occupied, Goto charges forward, thinking Ray is getting too excited over. He approaches quickly. He quickly prepares a fireball to end the fight. Ri activates his extreme body enhancement ability and completely dissipates the attack. Goto stares in disbelief as his magic is so easily dissolved. Taking full advantage of the opening, Ray charges forward, landing a heavy punch that sends Goto crashing into the wall. Goto's shock deepens as he realizes Ray has also mastered body enhancement. The two lackeys watch in terror, wondering if Ray is actually a two-color mage with dual abilities. Ri takes a heavy breath and answers them with a simple no, as he channels a surging new energy into his palm. The system confirms he has successfully stolen Goto's fireball ability, leaving the two men to face the consequences of what they forgot to mention. Goto is paralyzed with disbelief that Ray possesses a third color, something unheard of in this world. Ray prepares his attack and launches it, forcing Goto to scramble aside to avoid the blow. In the chaos, the mana restraint holding Oik suddenly breaks apart. Ray prepares another fireball, and if they truly want to continue this fight, Oik and Goto exchange a terrified glance, and then run away screaming, begging for mercy. Ri breathes a sigh of relief, but a new fear takes hold. If his brother finds out about this, it won't end.
Well, especially since he has
Always been treated like Kurosaki Kai's little dog. If Kai ever discovers Ray's awakening, he will surely come hunting, especially since the level 50 mage is one of the most powerful men of the modern era. Standing before the dungeon entrance, Ray knows he can't hide his growth forever. To prepare for the threats ahead, he must raise his level by any means possible. The grind begins. As he steps through the portal, Ray focuses on the core of a mage's power. It's not just about increasing mana capacity or learning skills, but the precision with which one can control that mana. Suddenly, an explosion rips through the air. A level 38 flame mage appears, already channeling a powerful spell. Ri realizes the brutal reality of their gap level difference dictates the strength of even the simplest technique. The mage launches a barrage of fireballs, leaving Ray no time to devise a strategy. Some attacks clash in midair, but others are aimed directly at his chest. Ri jumps to avoid the blast, realizing he stands no chance in a direct head-on fight against such power. Then a desperate plan forms, and he lunges through the smoke toward the mage. He knows that even a high-level mage leaves a brief opening after casting. Using body reinforcement, he targets those 2 precious seconds of vulnerability. Then it happens. A system notification confirms his prize. He has successfully stolen the fireball skill. The mage recovers only to find his magic gone, staring in confusion as his power vanishes. Ri knows the stolen skill leaves his opponent momentarily helpless, and he prepares to capitalize on this advantage before the mage can react. Ri unleashes the stolen fireball, engulfing the creature in a massive wave of flames. As the smoke clears, several notifications pop up from his system, informing him that he has already leveled up 4 times. the surge of power is intoxicating. He realizes that defeating high-level monsters provides massive experience, and with his skill-stealing ability, this dangerous climb will become a rapid ascent. With a determined look, he stares down the dark passage ahead. The system confirms his progress. Ray has officially advanced to level 12. Clenching his fist, he sets a new ambitious goal for his journey. He won't stop until he hits level 30. With that resolve, he sets out, moving from one monster to another, relentlessly leveling up. Rai pauses to reflect on his incredible growth, even though he is only level 27 so far. And he knows that as he approaches his goal, leveling up will only become more difficult. To reach level 30, he realizes he must face even more dangerous prey. As he opens the heavy doors and steps into the darkness to win. Determined to make every second count, Ray charges at the boss, leaping through the air to strike. Ri strikes with everything he has, but the demon blocks the blow with a sudden mana barrier. Startled by the defense, Ray is forced to leap backward immediately. He expected this resistance, knowing that getting close to the boss won't be easy because the barrier makes his signature skill stealing useless. He needs a new way in, but there's no time to plan. As the skeleton demon becomes absolutely furious, the massive boss unleashes a piercing roar that forcing Ray to dodge as he realizes he must use his secret ability. As he prepares, Ray notices several imps are already swarming him as well. Ri leaps into the swarm to punch an imp. To survive the onslaught, he immediately prepares his new ice weapon. By combining it with a stolen fireball, he unleashes a devastating elemental combo. He focuses his power, preparing his fireball, and launches it at a second monster. But he can't afford to stop. So as another monster rushes him, he readies, so he hurls the stolen ice stake. Ri's resolve hardens, and even as another imp charges, he sees opportunity where others would see danger. He strikes with confidence, eliminating the creature. The kill triggers a surge in power, leveling Ray up to 28. He realizes the boss could provide infinite experience if he plays his cards right, but a second notification catches his eye as his mana mastery hits the required threshold. And because of this breakthrough, the synthesis skill has been unlocked. Just as the skeleton demon prepares its next move, the skeleton demon loses its composure, letting out a piercing, unnatural scream. Ri prepares his ice stake, along with pairing it with a searing fireball. He immediately activates his new synthesis skill to fuse the two elements together before leaping into a desperate, all-out charge. The barrier cracks, and Ray successfully shatters the defense. He activates his body enhancement skill and delivers a heavy punch directly to the skeleton demon's face. While the boss is dazed from the blow, Ray thinks the protections are gone, and without thinking twice, he lunges forward with a devastating fire spear strike, engulfing the boss in flames as it begins to. The monster collapses, dropping a mana stone as the system notifies Ray that he has surged forward in power, reaching level 33. Relief washes over him as he contemplates the power of his new synthesis skill. After picking up the boss's drop, he sits on the ground, wondering if he truly could have won without it, until a sudden notification catches his eye. It informs him that because his level has risen, the limit for stolen skills has increased, and the number of available slots has increased to 5. Much to his delight, time passes, and once he returns to the agency entrance, the peaceful moment comes to a sudden halt. Hina stares at the mana stone in his hands, her eyes widening in disbelief. The inspector is stunned. She can't believe Ray defeated a skeleton demon alone and jumped straight to level 33. Ri tries to play it off as pure luck, but the sudden growth is impossible for a normal mage. Hina finds the claim suspicious, noting that leveling past 30 in a single day defies all logic. Ray can only offer an awkward laugh. She tells him that at this rate, he could become a rank B mage before. Kurosaki Kai appears, looking shocked to find his brother standing there. The powerful mage immediately turns arrogant, questioning if a mere little dog like Ray could actually achieve such a feat. Ri's jaw tightens at the insult, but Kai turns to the inspector to claim his brother isn't. Because he is a complete colorless, Ray's capacity remains limited to just one skill. Kai can't believe Hina is suggesting his brother might actually have potential beyond being a mere colorless. Hina clarifies that Ray isn't rank B yet, but notes he single-handedly defeated a red hood and a skeleton demon, a fact that leaves Kai visibly unsettled. A sinister gaze fixes on Ray as Kai prepares a massive, devastating punch, which results in an explosion at the agency entrance, leaving the surrounding crowd terrified as Ray blocks the blow with a shimmering mana barrier, only to laugh and warn his brother to be more careful. Hina shouts to get Kai's attention, demanding he stop causing such a scene, but he only turns his focus back to Ray. He only acknowledges that Ray's skills seem to have truly awakened, is about to make his stance very clear. As Kai begins channeling his power to test his brother's capability, Hina Reina watches with growing dread. The two-color mage scoffs, claiming that if Ray had truly reached rank B on his own merit, it wouldn't be an issue, and he demands to know if Ray's newfound skills are nothing but lies. Ri clenches his fists, realizing that refusing this challenge will only delay the inevitable confrontation. Summoning every ounce of confidence, he tells Kai that he understands the terms of their duel. Kai, disgusted by his brother's defiance, lashes out with a harsh insult. The tension follows them to the Mage Association arena, where Ray knows that a massive gap in mana control could be fatal. As Kai prepares for battle, Ray realizes he cannot afford even a single moment of distraction. He knows his level 30 limits him to only 3 basic skill slots, while Kai's level 50 capacity must be far greater. With such a massive skill deficit, Ray realizes a standard fight is a death sentence, so he must find a way to bridge the gap immediately. He decides to strike first using his ice stake, but Kai is already ready with his own magic. The two opposing forces collide in a massive explosion that rocks the entire arena. As the smoke clears, Kai waits. As the dust settles, Ri is caught completely off guard by his brother's sudden advance. Kai charges with a body enhancement skill, and based on the yellow mana, Ray assumes he is merely a two-color wielder. Ri calculates that after Kai's 4th skill, he's running low on mana, leaving only one chance left. Desperate to bridge the gap, Ray prepares his next move to create. He manifests a fire spear and charges at Kai. But Kai notices the blue and red mana merging, suggesting Ray might be a 3-color mage. Instead of being impressed, Kai offers a sinister smile,
launching a basic fireball directly at his brother.
The impact slams Ray hard into the ground, leaving him terrified and confused. How did a basic skill crush his synthesized spear? Kai admits he finally sees why Ray was so excited, but he makes one thing clear: they aren't even in the same league. Ri is on a vastly different level compared to his brother. Kai begins to gather his mana once again, taunts Ray to start dancing before launching a barrage of fire at him. Ri is forced to sprint sideways to avoid being incinerated by the flames. But while running, he desperately conjures his fire spear and throws it, only for Kai's superior magic to neutralize it instantly. The projectile vanishes, and the fire heads straight for Ray. He desperately raises a mana barrier, but the blast is too strong. The impact shatters the defense and slams Ray into the ground, leaving him trembling while Kai laughs at his struggle. To add insult to injury, Kai orders him to bow and beg for forgiveness for being so showy. Cold sweat beads on Ray's forehead as the weight of the gap between them sinks in. He realizes his limited mana cannot match Kai's overwhelming power, and a dark thought begins to take root. Perhaps it is better to just give up and continue living his life as his brother's dog. Ri stands up and shouts with defiance, refusing to submit. Kai's expression hardens as he looks at his brother, concluding that if Ray wants to learn the hard way, he has no choice. Terror grips Ray as he witnesses the true power of a king, realizing Kai's strength lies in his massive mana capacity, which he can amplify. That surpasses even the greatest kings. But Ray screams a warning, revealing he has been waiting for this exact moment. He charges forward, knowing that only Kai can perform 10 consecutive skills through overclock. As he closes the distance, Ray leaps high into the air, leaving Kai standing firm. Kai laughs, mocking Ray for his futile attempt to dodge while mid-air. He unleashes a barrage of fireballs, but Ray uses his mana hand to grab them and slams them into the earth. Kai stares in disbelief that his brother has learned another skill. Even if Ray can dodge, Kai knows his brother is still limited by the skill's cooldown. Stuck by a cooldown. Quickly pivoting, Ri plants his feet and delivers a devastating punch directly into the center of Kai's face, leaving him completely defenseless. The impact sends Kai crashing to the ground, leaving Ray stunned by how effective the hit was. Then, the system delivers a notification. Ray has successfully stolen the overclock skill. With his brother's strongest ability now in his grasp, Ray realizes there is nowhere left for Kai to run. Kai is already preparing a counterattack, combining his ice stake with the lingering flames of his previous fireball. A demonic spear by fusing ice and fire. There is no time for thought. He dives to the side just as the magic tears through the air, narrowly dodging the lethal strike. But Kai is not finished. Kai ignores the hit and prepares 2 more demonic spears, proving that his initial strength was no fluke. As Kurosaki Kai gets serious, Ray realizes the gap between them is becoming an unbridgeable abyss. Trapped, Ri finds himself cornered against the arena wall with nowhere left to run. Desperate, he thrusts his fire spear forward just as Kai launches his final demonic strike. And as the two powers collide, the impact triggers a massive, blinding explosion. The blast sends Ray crashing hard against the wall behind him, leaving him struggling to stay on his feet. Reach, which only proves that Kai is indeed the legendary, the undisputed strongest. Kai taunts his brother with overwhelming confidence. Breathing heavily, Ray knows his brother is right. The demonic spear is far too powerful. Kai scoffs, telling Ray not to get ahead of himself just because he has a few skills. Looking at his trembling hand, Ray realizes he is nowhere near his brother's level. Yet he clenches his fist tightly, fueled by a sudden desperate thought. He wonders if there's a way to reach the potential of purple skills. Until now, his low mana capacity has limited his synthesis to only 2 colors, but a new possibility begins to take shape. Ri decides to gamble everything and activates Overclock, the skill he stole from his own brother. Kai watches in disbelief, questioning if such a technique is even possible for someone like Ray. Suddenly, a system screen appears before Ray's eyes, signaling a massive surge in his internal power. The notification is clear: his mana capacity has been doubled, and the mysterious black synthesis skill has finally been unlocked. The doors to a new level of power have swung wide open. Ri feels a rush of excitement as this new skill manifests exactly when he needs it most. The energy flows into. He begins to channel the impossible merging red, blue, and then, finally, the yellow skill, to achieve a 3-color synthesis that no one has ever accomplished before. The colors collide to form the Abyssal Flame, a power so dark it leaves Kai paralyzed with disbelief. Ri once thought he was useless because he didn't match the standard blue, red, or yellow colors, but the mana he just consumed proves otherwise. The truth is finally clear. He is a black
Mage.
Despite Kai's desperate warnings for him to stay back, Ray refuses to yield, waiting for the perfect moment to completely dissipate his brother's attack with his new skill, while shouting that such a power is impossible. Ri keeps advancing, leaving a terrified Kai scrambling to prepare another attack. But Ray is far too fast, closing the gap before Kai can even unleash his power. With Abyssal Flame ready, Ray lunges forward. And the moment the two powers collide, everything vanishes. In a blinding flash of light that renders Kai's skill is completely neutralized by a violent explosion, leaving Ray waiting in the silence for the dust to settle. As the smoke clears, Ray sees his brother lying defeated on the ground. Exhausted, Ray falls to his knees, but a sudden system notification stops him in his tracks. The promise of his true potential has finally arrived. He has obtained the Abyssal Flame skill. Ri remains lost in thought, marveling at the tremendous power of the black synthesis, until the door to the arena room swings open. Hinarena, the exam inspector, rushes in and immediately asks if he is okay. Feeling a bit embarrassed, Ray simply replies that he is fine, but Hinarena is far from convinced, her eyes searching for the source of the surge. Ria realizes he can no longer hide his true nature from the world. He slowly extends his hand, channeling his new power, and confesses that he believes it might be a black skill. Hinarena is stunned, gasping that if this is true, it could be the first in history. Ri asks if he must report it, hoping to keep his secret, but Hinarena looks at him with confusion. She warns that hiding it would mean throwing away a legendary opportunity, prompting a confused Ray to ask for clarification. Since he is the world's only black mage, she explains he is destined to be the Black King. Hinarena insists that being a king means he will recover despite his injuries. Though she prepares to move, she will get him to the medical wing, but the urgent buzz of their phones interrupts them. A message. Ri stares at the screen in disbelief, eyes widening at the notification. Hinarena is just as shocked, but Ray knows exactly what this means. This is the Ikebukuro dungeon. It was once a place abandoned by all, but this alert marks the beginning of a massive tragedy. A dungeon break is imminent, and Ray knows that the monsters waiting behind the portal will change everything. In the original timeline, the Ikebukuro break unleashed a nightmare, turning Tokyo into a graveyard for countless innocent people.
Ri refuses to let
that slaughter happen again. He is determined to stop the collapse. He declares his intent to Hinarena that he will conquer Ikebukuro alone. To her utter shock, she is shocked by his resolve, warning him of the danger and explaining that only rank A mages are permitted to enter dungeons with a recommended level above 50. Since there is still time before the collapse, Ray asks if the next rank A exam is scheduled for next week. Intrigued by his sudden ambition, Hinarena confirms that the exam is indeed coming up soon.
Ri is determined to reach rank A in time for the upcoming exam.
Hinarena is surprised but agrees, noting that with his new skills, she believes he will have no problem passing. However, there is a major catch. To qualify for the rank A promotion, Ray must first clear a rank B dungeon, with a full group, leaving him only 1 week to assemble a team and succeed. Time passes, and Rei is struck by despair.
Completely forgot the requirement.
He checks his phone, only to find a flood of messages. Now, he has just 1 week to navigate an unexplored Rank B dungeon and change his destiny. Rei realizes that navigating the upcoming exam alone will be incredibly difficult, so he takes a deep breath to prepare for the challenge, but he is suddenly interrupted by the sound of harsh shouting nearby. A woman, accompanied by 2 companions, is berating another girl for her perceived weakness. Rei watches the confrontation unfold. Stunned by the blatant cruelty being directed at the girl, the leader makes it clear that she only let the girl join because of her dual-color talent, even though her fire skill is nothing but garbage. The girl can only offer a weak apology. Watching this painful scene, Rei can't help but feel a sense of déjà vu, remembering how much he was once mistreated himself. The woman refuses to relent, calling the girl Ichino's dead weight. Hearing that name, Rei wonders if this is truly Ichinose Aya. In his past life, she was the legendary Scarlet Queen, incompetent girl struggling to survive the pressure of her team. Rei can't believe the cruelty being shown to a fellow mage by her own team. Ichinose gasps out a desperate plea. Desperate to pay her sister's medical bills, she shouts that she will do her best next time, or else she'll end up on the street. She promises to prove her worth as the others prepare to. The tension lingers. Will actually turn out okay. Later, as Rei heads back to his house, a grim realization settles in. He knows Ichinose is destined to become the legendary Scarlet Queen, but the path to that title is paved with tragedy. He remembers her future self being left in a coma for years after a brutal boss battle, but as he walks, a sudden chilling memory resurfaces. Rei isn't sure if he can prevent the future, but something about Ichinose tells him she isn't normal. He realizes he needs to hurry before tragedy strikes. Deep within the dungeon, the stakes are already rising. Ichinose's group stands trembling before a nightmare. The nightmare itself is a level 45 Dullahan, driving a massive sword into the ground. Suddenly the group leader smiles cruelly and devises a plan. She pushes Ichinose forward, leaving the girl to face the monster alone. Ichinose is paralyzed with terror. She pleads that defeating a Dullahan solo is impossible, but her leader simply tells her to pack her bags. Desperate, Ichinose agrees to try it. The woman tells her to give it her best, using her sister's name as a cruel motivation. Ichinose falls silent, momentarily stunned, before throwing a desperate fireball at the Dullahan. But the attack does nothing to the creature. Ichinose remains paralyzed, her eyes wide with the terrifying realization that her attack failed. Her desperate attempts have been completely useless against the monster. Suddenly, the Dullahan leaps into the air, descending with a crushing blow that shatters the ground and sends Ichinose flying across the chamber from the sheer force of the impact. Lying helpless on the floor, she watches the monster loom over her. As the Dullahan prepares to deliver the killing blow, Ichinose can only close her eyes. She prepares to die, convinced of her own uselessness, but then a voice cuts through the chaos as someone invokes an extreme body enhancement skill. It is the man who arrives just in time to intercept the deadly strike, leaving Ichinose completely stunned. The sheer force of his movement leaves Ichinose gasping in shock, exerting such immense power that he slams the Dullahan hard against a wall with a single blow. Turning to her, Rei asks if she is okay. Meanwhile, Ichinose's former group watches from the shadows, their leader's curiosity turning into confusion. She wonders who this stranger is, knowing that a heavy-type monster like the Dullahan shouldn't be tossed aside so easily. The mystery of his power, terrified, desperate to know the identity of this powerhouse. But the Dullahan is not finished. It rises and lets out a deafening roar. The Dullahan's roar pierces the air, and Rei realizes that a simple strike won't be enough to fell this beast. He's in for a fight. As he dodges a strike, Rei attempts to use his skill absorption to nullify the Dullahan's reinforcement ability. But the attempt fails, and the force of the monster's retaliation sends him flying backward. After shaking off the impact, Rei manages to block a follow-up strike with his sword, while Ichinose asks if he's alright.
Rei realizes the truth. The armor is just an external layer. To steal the power, he must
reach the creature's body as it raises its massive sword for a finishing blow.
Ichinose, get back! Rei shouts,
desperately trying to protect her by activating a magic barrier to block the monster's devastating assault. The massive shockwave from the collision sends the two girls flying back toward the edge of the battlefield, who in turn activate their skills and launch an ice stake. However, Dullahan counters with a massive blow, shattering the ice instantly. The woman can't even believe it as she is hit by the force being slams her violently against a wall.
Rei watches the boss and realizes his ice stake was useless, so he must prepare a skill to surpass Dullahan's reinforcement.
Ichinose stares in shock, witnessing the terrifying black mana Rei is wielding. Rei prepares his strike, But Dolahan attacks first, and the monsters below come straight for Rei, who waits until the very last second to release the abyssal flame. The black flames completely dissipate the monster's attack, and, because of the sheer power, the blast continues toward the creature, which is struck head-on as its armor begins to crack, triggering a massive explosion. The Dolahan is finally defeated, dissolving into nothingness as it drops its loot. Ichino stares in shock, wondering if Rei managed to take down a level 45 boss with just a single blow. Watching him with newfound admiration, she quickly approaches him to thank him for saving her life, to which Rei simply responds that he is glad she is safe. As Rei picks up the drop, he reflects on his success in protecting Ichinose, until suddenly,
The leader of the girls' group
stands up and begins shouting, demanding to know what is happening though. She is clearly apprehensive of Rei's overwhelming strength. She lets out a sinister smile, convinced that the reward rightfully belongs to her. Therefore, she marches toward the pair, making it clear that the mana stone goes to the person who registered for the dungeon, ordering Rei to hand it over. Ichinos quickly steps in to defend him, declaring that the man beside her is the one who saved everyone. Rei offers to trade the precious loot to Ichinose in exchange for her joining his group, leaving both her and the group leader stunned. He gently smiles, making it clear that he only wants this if she chooses it herself. The group leader begins to laugh, dismissing Rei's offer as a joke before she quickly agrees to the deal. She places a hand on Ichinose's shoulder, pressing her to accept the new arrangement. Ichinos hesitates for a moment, but eventually agrees to be under his care. The leader greedily snatches the Mono Stone from Rei's hand, and as she starts to walk away, she mocks Rei by calling Ichinos dead weight. Rei seethes at the insult, knowing exactly who Ichinos is destined to become. Ichinos accepts Rei's offer, but voices her deepest insecurity, fearing she is nothing more than a burden to him. Rei quickly shuts that thought down, extending a hand and promising that she will become far stronger than those who cast her aside. "Will I really get strong?" she asks, her voice trembling. Rei nods firmly, admitting he overheard her being humiliated at the association and wants to help her rise. The memory of the abuse brings a shadow of sadness to Ichinose's eyes, prompting an apology from Rei for his bluntness. Even so, he offers a hand once more, determined to help her find her true potential. Rei extends his hand once more, offering a path forward, though hesitant at first. But finally, she accepts, placing her fate in his hands. Rei's new journey with Ichinose has officially begun. Rei tells her that he feels the same. The next day brings them to the mouth of a dungeon, where Rei explains that their goal is to conquer a rank B dungeon to qualify for the rank A exam. But he emphasizes that it is not just about the exam, as there's a key hidden inside that can make Ichinose much stronger. Ichinose is intrigued, thinking that greater strength will finally provide the money she needs for medical expenses.
She focuses herself,
Looking toward the darkness to call him forward, to signal Rei to move forward. They enter the rank B Crystal Cave dungeon, but the silence is short-lived. Ichinos suddenly freezes, pointing toward a movement in the shadows. Black wolves emerge from the shadows, but Rei tells her to leave them to him. Rei augments his body and lunges toward the approaching threat. With blinding speed, he tears through the pack of black wolves, striking with lethal precision. Watching him fight, Ichinose is impressed by the strength she once thought Isoyama's group possessed, but seeing Rei's movement, she realizes he is on an entirely different level, far beyond anything she has ever witnessed. After the wolves fall, Rei explains their mission and promises his full support. Determined to make the most of his promise, Rei will give her every advantage possible. Ichinos nods, her resolve hardening as she prepares for battle. To level up quickly, she knows she must defeat as many monsters as possible. She knows her current skills are limited to basic attacks, so when more creatures emerge, she decides to push her limits by casting a fireball at the oncoming horde. Rei watches from a distance as Ichinos battles, treating this trial as a way to see if she can discover her true weapon. He waits for her to realize it, hoping she finds her own path to power. But then, he notices monsters creeping behind her, and she is suddenly ambushed. Ichinos looks around in confusion, realizing that no matter how many she slays, they just keep coming, and she fears her mana will. Her mana is running low. Suddenly, an idea strikes her as she turns to see Rei fighting off the encroaching horde. Seeing him work so hard to clear her path, she realizes she cannot just stand by. She must stop lamenting and start meeting his expectations. Ichinos keeps firing her fireballs, rapidly clearing the path through the monsters. As she continues to level up, something incredible happens. Her mana pool stops depleting. While casting her skill, she realizes her. Then a system notification appears, leaving Ichinos gasping in disbelief. She stares in shock at the alert, realizes that her magic has finally evolved. The furnace skill has been unlocked, providing the infinite fuel she needs for war. With this new power, they quickly reach the heart of the crystal cave to face the boss. Blocking their path is a massive, level 52 great slime. The monster looms over them. Ri charges headlong into the gelatinous mass, striking with everything he has. Mid-combat, he screams at Ichinose to unleash her newly awakened power. Without a second of hesitation, she activates the furnace and, allowing intense flames to envelop her entire body. Ichinose stares in shock at her own hands, clenching her fists tightly, as Rei realizes the furnace is a skill that boosts firepower at the cost of massive mana. It is a power tailor-made for her, and she immediately puts it to the test. She unleashes an intensified fireball that devastates the battlefield. Watching her power, Rei is deeply impressed, knowing she is well on her way to becoming the Scarlet Queen. With the Great Slime finally defeated, Rei commends her work, prompting her to laugh, admitting that her sudden growth is all thanks to him. As they leave the cave, Rei surveys the destruction her power left behind. They have finally cleared the requirements to enter the Rank A exam. Ri knows he must pass this time, no matter the cost. On the day of the exam, Hina Reina explains the first stage, a simulated battle to evaluate their combat potential. An intruder sneers, claiming they never imagined an incompetent like Ichinose would even attempt the exam. The tension rises as Isoyama and her group approach the testing grounds. Ichinose demands to know their business, but Rei steps in before she can, boldly declaring that his friend won't fall to a group that leaves its own members to die on the front lines. Uezoyama scoffs at the insolence, then turns to brag that her team possesses the absolute best members. With a smirk, she introduces Aono Yuri, a mage so powerful she claims neither Rei nor Ichinose will ever stand a chance against her. Ri is stunned, wondering if this is truly Aono Yuri, the legendary name he remembers from his past life. The one who once cleared a deadly dungeon with such ease it became a world-renowned feat. He calculates that her rank should still be around A, but the woman suddenly closes the distance, approaching Rei with a sharp gaze. "You seem like an interesting person," Aono Yuri says, her eyes locking onto his. Ri's sudden silence doesn't go unnoticed by Ichinose, who wonders if he's seen something she missed. Meanwhile, Aono Yuri leans in, her interest piqued by Rei's name, as she wonders if he is Kurosaki Kai's brother, fueled by rumors that the powerful Purple King was recently defeated by someone. She points a finger directly at Rei, demanding to know if he is the one who actually took down Kurosaki Kai. Ichinose can barely believe the implication, looking to her companion for confirmation. But Aono Yuri dismisses the shock, claiming she doesn't care and doubts Rei could ever match her. Before walking off with a scoff about Kurosaki Kai rumors, Rei simply smiles, finding her incredibly intriguing. At the Mage Association Agency training field, an official explains that the participants will be evaluated using a reinforced artificial golem. This construct is coated in a special, ultra-hard stone designed to withstand even the strongest magic. Therefore, Kurosaki Rei is called forward to be the very first to face the challenge. As Rei approaches, the stone construct immediately shifts into battle mode. Observers begin to laugh as Rei prepares a basic fireball, doubting that such simple fire magic could ever hope to damage such a formidable opponent. Knowing an ordinary spell will fail, Rei expertly dodges the golem's heavy, activates his skill synthesis. With total precision, he unleashes a devastating fire lance. The projectile pierces the golem's head, leaving a massive hole and sending the construct crashing to the ground. As the destruction is officially confirmed, the onlookers can't believe their eyes, whispering in shock at the sight of such a powerful, two-colored attack. As the crowd murmurs, Ichinose moves toward the mana evaluation, where the examiner requests she test her capacity. Ichinose places her hand upon the crystal to undergo the measurement. Despite Isoyama's stinging insults, Ichinose places her hand upon the device. She steadies herself. Uezoyama is convinced the girl is cheating, unable to accept that she could possess such a tremendous amount of mana. Before any can react, the examiner announces the start of the simulated battle tests, pitting Ichinose against Isoyama in their first match. Ichinose takes a deep breath, focusing all her energy. Uezoyama is determined to expose Ichinose as a fraud. The instructor gives the command, and Isoyama immediately launches her ice magic, but Ichinose simply waits for the attack to close the distance. The tension breaks as Ichinose prepares a massive fireball, which slams into the incoming ice, triggering a massive explosion that completely shatters the stakes. Isoyama stares in shock, unable to comprehend such raw and the sheer force of the blast. Refusing to let the momentum fade, Ichinose immediately readies another fireball, which leaves Isoyama terrified.
Panic sets in.
Ichinose unleashes her skill, but Isoyama desperately raises a magic barrier, screaming that she won't be underestimated. Uezoyama holds her ground, foolishly believing Ichinose's simple attacks are easy to wait out. But the strikes keep coming without stopping, and Isoyama starts to wonder why Ichinose won't relent. Ri watches closely, knowing that once Ichinosi's massive mana is fully unleashed, it's a magic barrier that will stop her. Therefore, Ichinose intensifies her barrage, and Isoyama's defensive shell begins to crack under the pressure. It doesn't take long for the barrier to be completely shattered, forcing Isoyama to flee to avoid the brunt of the impact. However, the explosion sends debris flying, striking Isoyama's head hard, knocking her out. The instructor declares Ichinose the winner, leaving her beaming with joy. It's a victory she won't forget. Ri approaches Ichinose to congratulate her on a beautiful battle, but as she wishes him luck, someone new approaches. Rei thanks her, only to realize his next opponent is waiting. The instructor shouts for Kurosaki Rei and Aono Yuri to prepare, meaning Rei's next opponent will be her. And he knows it will be interesting. Aono Yuri questions why he is even taking this exam, noting he seems far more prepared than the others, which is
the reason for her suspicion.
Ri declares he has a mission more important than anything else, so he must not lose. He grows serious, making it clear that he cannot fail here. Aono becomes thoughtful, but she soon smiles. Aono Yuri boasts of her overwhelming strength, yet Rei grips his sword with grim determination. He knows exactly how strong she is, but he refuses to back down from this fight. With the instructor's command to begin, the duel ignites. Aono's strike is unleashed instantly, forcing Rei into a frantic defensive struggle as he counters her onslaught. To survive, he must rely on mana conversion, a rare skill that grants him total control over his magical energy. Suddenly, a lethal shadow descends from above. Rei narrowly dodges the strike, earning a rare laugh from Aono for his quick reflexes. He ignores her jest and charges, but she meets his advance with a relentless barrage of spells. Ri raises a magic barrier to weather the storm. Aono strikes back, but Rei manages to dodge the blow. Ri attempts to seize advantage of her being airborne and launches a fire lance through skill synthesis.
With a swift mana conversion,
She blocks.
Blocks the strike, proving her defense is as flawless as her reputation. Watching with apprehension, her friend remains tense during this fierce duel. But the battle isn't over. Aono is already preparing her next skill. As she launches the attack, Rei has to scramble. To avoid being hit by the onslaught, he realizes that her power is truly a problem. Aono challenges his running tactics and shouts that it is checkmate as she unleashes a killing blow. But Rei taps into extreme body enhancement, shredding through every attack sent his way. Watching him closely, Aono realizes that he is using body enhancement, so Aono Yuri smiles with pure excitement. She marvels at Rei's 3 colors of mana before announcing that she can also use body enhancement. With that, she summons a massive mana scythe, intending to end this duel right now by appearing instantly behind him. Ri spins at the last second, just barely repelling the strike. Ri realizes her speed is nothing short of absurd. Aono ignores his survival instincts, unleashing a relentless barrage of scythe strikes that force Rei into a desperate defense. Her raw power is overwhelming, but Rei suddenly closes the distance and grabs her arm. Aono realizes too late that touching him was a fatal mistake. Suddenly, confusion washes over her as a strange sensation takes hold. A notification flashes in her mind. Her extreme body enhancement has been absorbed, leaving her scrambling back in horror. Seeing her power failing, Rei seizes the opening and, fading, lunging forward to deliver the impact leaves Aono Yuri coughing painfully. And as she collapses, she realizes Rei was hiding his true strength.
She falls to the ground,
And the instructor declares Kurosaki Rei the winner of the battle. Later, in the medical wing, Aono Yuri begins to
wake up, much to Rei's relief.
She admits defeat, but Rei tells her that her strength truly surprised him. She jokingly wonders if he is about to brag about the promotion, but Rei's expression turns serious. He gets straight to the point, asking her if she would consider joining his group, leaving her completely stunned by the sudden invitation. Ri explains that based on the results of the simulation, Ri notes that Aono Yuri is also promoted to rank A, making her the perfect addition for conquering the world's deadliest dungeons, but Aono laughs, finding his seriousness absolutely amusing. Once she stops, she tells him he's an interesting man. She accepts his offer, deciding that life might get much more exciting if she follows him. As they shake hands, Aono makes it clear she is officially under his care. Suddenly, a violent tremor shakes the ground. Terrified, Ichinose wonders if it's just an earthquake, but Rei looks outside with dread, fearing that it's something far more catastrophic than a simple tremor. Even though Kronos, the god of time and space, is currently sealed, smile, knowing that his long-awaited time is finally near. As the tremors subside, Ichinose looks to Rei for answers, but he can only think of the disaster he remembers from his past life. He knows these earthquakes are just precursors to the inevitable collapse of the Ikebukuro dungeon, and the time limit is rapidly running out. Because of the unprecedented difficulty of this dungeon in the current era, Rei realizes he must prepare them for what's coming. Once he shares his grim warning, Ichinose is stunned, questioning if they can truly conquer the hardest dungeon in Japan with only 3 people. Aono Yuri joins the conversation, wondering if Rei's sudden urgency is tied to the recent tremors. Rie remains grim, explaining that recent reports of irregular monsters suggest these tremors are a prelude to something far more threatening. Aono Yuri declares her readiness for whatever Rei decides, finding the prospect of the dungeon interesting. Ichinose finds her resolve, promising she won't become a burden to the group. Relieved by their spirit, Rei thanks them and vows that they will conquer the Ikebukuro dungeon. The following day, a representative arrives at the Mage Association agency to seek out Inspector Hina Reina. Rie and his team make their intentions clear. They are there to conquer the Ikebukuro dungeon.
The threat level is climbing.
Ichinose suggests teaming up with others, but Rei knows they lack the rank of mages needed for this mission. He finds himself wishing Oikawa Hikaru, the highest-ranked mage in Japan, was here to help. Rie remembers from his past life that a dungeon collapse brings the god of space and time, Kronos, to the world, and Kronos is a danger he cannot allow to manifest again. Driven to prevent catastrophe, Rei tells them they must leave immediately, but Ichinose stops him, raising a hand with a specific request. She asks if he can stop being so formal and use her first name instead, asking for a bit more intimacy. She says, with Ichinose nodding in agreement as they both wait for his answer. Ichinose just smiles, teasingly asking if the group isn't all becoming friends. Rie agrees with the sentiment and gathers Aya and Yuri to begin their mission to conquer the Ikebukuro dungeon. They step into the Ikebukuro dungeon, and the atmosphere immediately shifts. The air feels heavy. Rie catches a glimpse of something looming in the darkness ahead, revealing a level 71 skull demon that immediately senses their presence. While such a powerful creature would be a boss in other places, here, it acts like a common monster. He prepares himself and calls out to Aya and calling to them, as they both shout that they are ready to fight. Therefore, the moment the 3 charge, the creature erupts with a mana barrier. Rei, through skill synthesis, concludes they must shatter that defense first. He launches a fire lance against the barrier, but the impact is insufficient to break it. Realizing the danger, shouts for the others to strike. He leaps to the side, just as Yuri and Aya prepare their magic to clash with the Skull Demon's defenses. The barrier finally shatters, and Rei seizes the moment to strike the demon hard, delivering a finishing blow that forces a mana stone to drop. With the first creature defeated, Rei feels a surge of relief. He turns back to his friends, noting their great timing, but Yuri's expression is far from celebratory. Ever since their duel, she has been dying to know how he wields so many different skills. Caught off guard, Rei finally admits the truth.
Possesses skill steal.
As his teammates stare in confusion, Rei explains that he can take an ability just by touching his opponent. Yuri's eyes widen as she realizes that's exactly what happened during their fight. Even though Rei has already returned her skill, Aya can't help but be impressed by this impossible power. Though she was initially shocked by his plan to conquer the Ikebukuro dungeon, she is now left questioning everything she thought she knew about him. Rie calls the two to move forward, pushing deeper into the dungeon. Aya moves with him. Aya follows with confidence, believing that as long as Rei is by her side, they can withstand anything. They continue their descent, slicing through monsters together. The path ahead is clear. Soon, the trio arrives at the entrance of the boss room. However, the rumbling ground grows louder, and Aya can't help but feel a growing sense of dread. Kurosaki Rei assures her that their levels have increased, making the fight winnable, but Aya pauses. She realizes just how much Rei and Yuri have grown through these battles, and she knows that she must do her part to support them at any cost. Then, a sudden violent crash echoes through the chamber. Something massive slams into the ground directly behind Aya. Rei and Yuri spin around in terror as something strikes at Aya, snatching her away before anyone can react. The level 89 Reaper, the massive boss of this dungeon, has breached its room, leaving Rei's heart sinking as he wonders what's going wrong. While the group's panic rises, the imprisoned Kronos lets out a chilling laugh. Even as Yuri questions the gravity of this nightmare, Rei stares at the chaos and declares that they must save Aya, no matter
What happens?
High above, in a separate domain, the god of time and space observes that the monsters have been released. He knows this is the absolute limit of his power. He can only hope Rei becomes the first victim of the grand opening. Rei shouts desperately, trying to reach Aya, who remains trapped. Struggling to respond while fearing she has become a burden to her comrades, she manages to conjure a mana barrier, but Rei knows even her vast reserves have their limits. He realizes his only hope is his abyssal flame, but the risk of hitting Aya in the crossfire is too high. To save her, Rei tells Yuri to focus on the rescue while he draws the monster's attention. With no other choice, they both charge into the fray. The boss lunges at Rei with lethal intent, but he narrowly dodges the strike. Even a standard strike from this creature carries such devastating power that Rei realizes there is no way he can fatal. As he scrambles back to solid ground, a massive tentacle bursts from the earth, striking out for him. Aya watches in terror, her eyes filled with worry for Rei's safety. Using a mana hand to grab a nearby wall, Rei pulls himself clear just in time to dodge the lethal limb. Seeing the chaos, Yuri decides enough is enough. She leaps toward Aya, swinging her mana scythe to strike at the capturing tentacle. But both combatants freeze in sudden shock, as the boss activates a strengthening skill on the limb, making it even more dangerous. With the tide turning against them, Yuri is forced to retreat. Rei rushes to her side to check for injuries, but Yuri is already looking back at the monster, questioning the strange nature of this sudden power boost. Rei finds the monster's behavior erratic. Tentacles should be weak, yet this one possesses an unexpected strengthening skill. Even worse, the beast has wandered far from its own territory, adding a layer of mystery to this chaos. At that moment, Rei sees the boss preparing its next attack, realizing they won't even have time to think before it strikes. As the chaos unfolds, Aya watches with guilt, feeling she has relied too heavily on Rei's strength to win her own battles. Desperate to help, she activates her barrier, searching for any way to support them. But Yuri's attempt to push harder fails, causing her to lose her mana scythe as the situation spirals out of control. The battle is turning into a disaster. As the fight drags on, Rei notices their mana levels are dangerously low, leaving them vulnerable to the monster's relentless strikes. Suddenly, a desperate idea strikes him. He shouts at Aya to use her mana fusion skill on the group. Aya looks confused, and Yuri questions the tactic, fearing the massive mana cost will leave them even more exhausted while under fire. Rei remembers his previous life, where mana fusion was dismissed as a useless skill, but he knows the truth. Aya herself was the one who proved its true world-changing potential. Though Aya always thought her ability was a waste, she chooses to trust Rei implicitly. If he is asking, then she will do it, so without hesitation, she prepares to commit everything to the technique. Aya activates her mana fusion skill. As the mana flows toward Rei and Yuri, Aya is surprised and wonders if her mana is actually being restored. Rei realizes that mana fusion is working, but he also knows something else. The sheer amount of energy she's providing is only, but he quickly suspects another tragic outcome. She concludes that the energy must be trapped within her own barrier, so she makes a desperate choice. The sudden disappearance of the mana shield shocks the entire group. Aya's sacrifice is met with instant terror as the boss's tentacles lash out to seize her. Her barrier vanishes, drawing the immediate horror of her friends. Rei is, as the boss's tentacles instantly seize Aya and drag her away, which quickly amplifies the power of her mana fusion skill. Power for everyone else. Rei shouts for his friend, but Aya is almost pulled away entirely. Seeing Aya's desperate state, Rei's expression hardens into a grim resolve. Moved by Aya's sacrifice, they both charge toward the beast with everything they have. While Rei thanks his friend for the surge of mana, therefore they charge directly into the monster's grip, slicing through the tentacles with newfound ease.
Rei promises Yuri they'll rescue Aya on the next boost.
But time is running out, as Aya is already spent and still trapped. Rei continues his desperate charge, but the boss's relentless tentacles force him to retreat momentarily. Fearing they won't reach her in time, Rei watches as Yuri releases her power to clear a path. She is creating a staircase toward Aya so he can reach his friend. Even with a path, the monster refuses to yield. The boss continues his assault with even more tentacles, but Rei is ready. He activates his body coating, increasing his defense to
Maximum levels.
dashes forward at high speed, cutting through the tentacles as if they were nothing. He grabs Aya and leaps, glances back to see if the monster is pursuing them. The monster didn't move. He lands safely and asks if she's okay. Aya simply laughs, telling him she expected nothing less from him. He's relieved to see her safe. Yuri approaches Aya to thank her for the mana restoration, praising her incredible bravery. Aya smiles in response, but her eyes quickly turn back to the monster. She warns them that the boss's body is still far from defeated. Suddenly, something unnatural happens to the severed tentacles, and they all rapidly regenerate. The limbs lash out toward the group, forcing everyone to scramble back to safety. If this monster keeps regenerating like this, the situation is going to become impossible. A tentacle bursts from the floor to strike Yuri, but she dodges and counterattacks before yelling out, wondering how much worse this could get.
She is.
stunned when Rei tells her to leave everything in his hands.
Yuri realizes time is running out, so she leaves the final blow to Rei if he has a plan.
Rei stabs his sword into the ground in agreement, before charging at full speed to end this once and for all. She watches him closely. A tentacle lunges to intercept him, but Rei dodges, knowing his previous abyssal flame failed to stop the regeneration. To ensure a kill, he must push his limits and activate Overclock, doubling his current firepower. The boss reacts to the sudden surge of mana by letting out a terrifying roar. Rei waits for the perfect opening, and as soon as he sees it, unleashes the devastating abyssal flame, leaving the creature paralyzed with terror. The massive attack strikes the boss's body, blasting a gaping hole through its massive form. With the creature finally broken, it collapses, crashing violently to the ground. Rei breathes a sigh of relief as his plan succeeds. Meanwhile, watching from a divine realm, Kronos, the god of time and space, is unsettled by the unexpected loss of his servant. He never imagined the Reaper could be defeated by such mortals, but his shock quickly turns to fury, and as he continues to watch the group, he decides that none of them will leave the dungeon alive. While Aya cheers for Rei's victory, a strange, ominous energy begins seeping from the carcass, forcing Rei to scream a warning just before the energy halts midway. It's not just a residue, it's something far more sinister. The darkness surges outward from the fallen Reaper's body, erupting in a terrifying display of corrupted power. Rei shouts for everyone to run immediately, sensing the unknown threat. He knows they have to get out of there as fast as possible. While racing toward the light of the exit, Rei worries about the dungeon collapsing. He can't die here, not after everything. And the shadows swallow the path ahead. And Aya, Yuri, and Rei freeze in terror. Suddenly, a voice commands them to move, and a massive magic shield erupts to block the corruptive wave. Rei stares to the side, completely stunned. As the savior approaches, Rei wonders who this stranger could be. The man casually dismisses his skill and laughs, saying they were almost hit. They were almost attacked. Aya offers her thanks, but asks who he is. The blonde stranger introduces himself as Oikawa Hikaru, and Aya is visibly stunned to realize she's standing before him. He laughs, amused by her shock.
Rei confirms the legend. Oikawa is an S-rank mage, a tier of power far beyond anything their group has ever faced.
In his past life, he was known as the Yellow King, a title that commands absolute respect. Oikawa admits the situation looked grim when he arrived, but he's glad he could make it in time after being notified about the chaos. Rei wonders who could have sent word, but quickly realizes it must have been Hina Reina. She must have sent him after scolding him for being so reckless. Suddenly, Oikawa's playful demeanor vanishes and he turns serious. Oikawa wonders if Rei is the brother of Kurosaki Kai, leaving Rei stunned that such a famous mage knows his kin. But Oikawa has no interest in the connection, telling him not to worry about it. Rei offers his thanks for the assistance, and Oikawa laughs off the gesture. The S-rank mage then commends Rei for his incredible feat of defeating the dungeon boss. Suddenly, a massive dark stone falls to the ground, glowing with intense mana. Oikawa picks up the drop and notes that such a large stone is proof of the boss's immense strength. He tosses the treasure to Rei with a congratulatory grin, despite Rei's hesitation to accept such a prize. Regardless of the chaos, Oikawa insists the conquest belongs to Rei. Before he leaves, Oikawa Hikaru promises he'll be watching Rei's future achievements with even more excitement. Once the S-rank mage is gone, the group is left stunned by the entire turn of events and decide to head straight to the Mage Association. As they step inside, Aya remarks on how peculiar Oikawa seems. Rei agrees, suggesting the powerful mage might just be an easygoing person or someone with far too much free time. The conversation is interrupted when Hina Reina rushes toward them, her face etched with worry. She shouts Rei's name, anxious because he had taken so long after requesting permission this morning. She points out that the dungeon they entered is rated for level 70 and above, making it far more dangerous than usual. The air in the association is tense as they approach the counter. Rei sets the massive mana stone on the counter, announcing that they have completely conquered the dungeon. Hina Reina shouts in disbelief, unable to comprehend how such a feat was possible. Across the city, news of the Ikebukuro dungeon conquest spreads rapidly, leaving everyone questioning who could have survived such a high-level raid. Amidst the chaos, Aya finds hope in the prize, realizing this victory will finally cover her sister's medical expenses. She stands before a press conference, expressing her immense gratitude to the man who led them to success. Meanwhile, Aizoyama watches the broadcast on a massive screen, and when a colleague asks if that is truly Aya, she is left paralyzed by shock, convinced it must be a lie, even as Kurosaki Kai watches the broadcast with growing fury. Far from the spotlight, mysterious figures exchange messages, questioning how a mere colorless mage could have conquered the Ikebukuro dungeon. To them, the news is a scandal, but also a sign of his rapid growth. It's exactly as Oikawa Hikaru expected. Meanwhile, Rei walks through the city, looking up at the dungeon he just conquered. He is relieved to have prevented its collapse, but he knows he only survived because of his teammates. Rei clenches his fists, realizing he only succeeded because everyone helped him. Driven by a new sense of purpose, he knows he must get stronger, no matter what. 3 days pass, and at the association, Hina Reina sees Rei and tells him his recent exploits have everyone talking. Rei feels embarrassed by the sudden attention, but he quickly pivots to the real reason for this meeting. The group is stunned by the sudden summons. Rei questions why, as they only recently achieved rank A. Hina Reina shows him a document explaining it is likely due to their Ikebukuro conquest. Rei realizes that such elite requests are only extended to a select few mages. Aya is certain they were chosen for Rei's strength, but he humbly insists it was a team effort. He wonders who could be the requester, but Hina Reina apologizes, stating that the superiors have ordered the details to remain secret. Yuri finds the mystery intriguing and wonders why they can't simply accept it, though Rei notes that since it came through the association, it seems legitimate. However, Hina Reina adds one more piece of information. An S-rank mage will be accompanying them on this mission. The next day, the team gathers to meet their powerful new ally. As they wait, Oikawa Hikaru arrives, his presence demanding attention. Therefore, the world-famous Oikawa Hikaru will be joining the group for this dungeon conquest, a revelation that leaves everyone stunned. Rei admits he never expected the S-rank mage to join, but Oikawa just laughs, admitting he planned the surprise to see the glory they'll achieve together. Grand surprised himself to bask in the glory of the conquest. While Aya notes Oikawa's carefree attitude, Rei remains focused on the power of their new ally, despite the strange mechanism lurking inside. The dungeon they've entered, Oikawa confirms the reports of a massive wall of fire blocking the way, leaving Rei to wonder how the team will overcome such a lethal obstacle. With Oikawa's skills on their side, the wall of fire should be nothing. Rei observes the S-rank mage's non-stop bragging and wonders why everything seems so easy for him. The blonde man promises to carry the entire group through the dungeon like a massive ship once they see him in action. His boastful words are cut short when a massive threat emerges. Rei's attention shifts toward a sudden movement in the shadows. A swarm of massive insects is charging directly at them. Rei warns the group that a monster wave is approaching, signaling that a fight is imminent. This is the perfect chance to witness an S-rank mage's true power, but Rei is left stunned by the sight before him. Instead of fighting, Oikawa is trembling in a corner, admitting he is terrified of insect-type monsters. Aya screams at his sudden lack of confidence after his grand promises, but Rei knows there is no room for doubt. They have no choice but to handle this themselves. As the insect swarm closes in, Rei shouts for the team to stand ready. Aya wastes no time, launching a fireball into the growing crowd. Yuri seizes the moment to push forward, declaring these insects are nothing compared to their previous foes. Using her mana conversion, she begins tearing through the swarm. The battlefield is a chaotic mess. Rei follows her lead by synthesizing his skills into a devastating fire spear, which he hurls to strike multiple enemies at once, leaving Oikawa deeply impressed by his prowess. Aya cheers, shouting that they finally did it. Rei agrees, praising the group's teamwork, while a sheepish Oikawa approaches to admit he was saved by them. But as Oikawa tries to explain his hatred of bugs, a presence lurks in the shadows. Rei feels a chilling sensation. They are being watched. Rei shouts a warning because several monsters are charging at Oikawa Hikaru. The blonde S-rank mage becomes serious. He activates his magic around the wolves, and in a flash, they are all crushed. He smiles, revealing his square box skill, then shrinks the power into a small magic cube. As it falls, the group watches in shock at Oikawa's prowess. As he picks up the cube, noting his distaste for surprise attacks. Seeking answers, Rei asks about the incredible ability. Oikawa explains his skill is a barrier ability called Square Box. While it cannot affect massive enemies, it is perfect for neutralizing smaller creatures. He calls it quite convenient, and Rei recalls hearing of it before, but seeing it in person is truly amazing. As Oikawa Hikaru calls the group to keep moving, Rei realizes this casual confidence is the true mark of a ranks mage. After navigating through the dungeon, they finally reach a wall of intense heat where Aya worries about the searing temperature. Rei questions if they really have to go through it, but Oikawa assures them he will handle everything. He then creates a barrier over the wall of flames, carving out a safe passage. He
smiles as
the group marvels at his skill. Once they cross through, Rei points out the passage, leading to the boss room and asks if everyone is ready. After they all give a resounding yes, he gets excited and declares they're going in. With that, The group heads toward the boss. While walking into the boss room, Oikawa Hikaru can't help but wonder if Rei will truly live up to his reputation.
Then a predator emerges.
The heat becomes unbearable as they step into the chamber. Emerging from the shadows is a level 68 Flameclaw Tiger. Rei quickly draws his sword, realizing just how intimidating the boss looks. Intimidating indeed. The beast unleashes its power, gathering a massive fireball. Rei shouts for everyone to set up a magic barrier, but Oikawa dismisses the concern without missing a beat. The monster fires its devastating attack, but the S-rank mage effortlessly blocks it, leaving Rei stunned by his ability. Oikawa merely smiles, promising to keep pace with them using his barrier before he leaves.
The creature to the team.
Rei, nodding in agreement, tells him they'll handle the boss, though he warns that they shouldn't underestimate this beast as even a barrier can break under enough pressure. Rei hesitates to use his abyssal flame. The Flameclaw Tiger is far too fast, and using dark magic carries a massive cost. Therefore, he decides to switch tactics, pushing himself to lead the charge while telling his allies to find an opening. He activates an extreme body enhancement to push his physical limits, then jumps, and as he lunges toward the boss, the beast lunges at him, but it quickly dodges the incoming abilities by jumping to the side and then starts
The moment Rei dodges the attack,
countering the beast while Yuri and Aya prepare their abilities to launch a combined fireball and mana conversion. The devastating attack flies straight toward the boss, heading for its mark. The intensity of the battle makes Rei realize that they need to end this fight quickly before the extreme heat drains them dry. Defeating the beast as soon as possible is the only way to survive. Watching Rei's performance, Oikawa Hikaru observes his movements closely. The S-rank mage worries that Rei's physical strength will fail him if this battle drags on much longer. He waits with bated breath, eager to see what the boy's true potential is. Taking a deep breath, Rei coordinates with Aya and Yuri, instructing them to target the boss's feet rather than its core. Recognizing the tactical genius, the women prepare their attacks as Yuri launches her ability to force the monster into position. Aya then channels her power into a strengthened stone bullet, and she hurls the projectile at the boss, but the creature manages to dodge it again. Rei realizes that no matter how agile the boss may be, it won't be able to dodge in midair. Refusing to waste another second, he leaps forward and imbues his blade with a sudden chill. Oikawa watches in surprise as Rei coats his sword in a layer of ice. The boss is caught completely off guard, allowing Rei to land a hit squarely. The Flameclaw Tiger cannot react, crashing violently against the ground. The monster defeated, the girls rush to Rei to celebrate, though he insists it was only thanks to them. Oikawa smiles, noting that it was a wonderful team effort and that Rei is truly a talented mage, just as the report stated, though he suspects the boy has yet to show his true power. Rei prepares to lead the group back to the association to file the report, but Oikawa activates his magic, signaling for everyone to wait. Rei is confused when Oikawa Hikaru proposes a sudden test, but the S-rank mage is dead serious. Oikawa explains that his square box can serve as a training method by sealing monsters inside it. He wants to see Rei's true power by having him defeat whatever is trapped within. Oikawa promises to seal the creatures back up if things get too dangerous, leaving the choice to Rei. Determined to gain more experience, Rei clenches his fist and accepts the challenge. Oikawa prepares his ability, and as the box opens, dark energy begins to spill out, swirling and taking a sudden solid form in the air. Rei watches intrigued as a black shadow begins to manifest. The monster shifts to match the deepest fears of its opponent, and Oikawa can only wonder what form it will take. However, the realization hits like a physical blow as a terrifying power is released. Rei freezes in pure terror as the shadow takes the shape of the god of time and space. Kronos, even Oikawa, is stunned, realizing Rei's inner strength has summoned a nightmare beyond anything he ever imagined. Oikawa watches the terror etched on Rei's face, wondering if the boy has faced this nightmare before. Rei knows this isn't the real Kronos, yet the mere aura brings back the crushing dread felt before his regression. Refusing to succumb to paralysis, he launches himself at the godlike shadow. Yet he refuses to stay paralyzed by fear, and instead charges toward the shadow without
hesitation.
Clashing swords, Rei finds a sudden surge of strength and forces the copy of Kronos to retreat. The shadow is preparing its ability, a direct strike aimed straight for him, and Rei is struck by a sudden wave of dread. The shadow is about to unleash its ability, forcing Rei into a desperate dodge to avoid a fatal hit. Watching from the sidelines, Aya wonders what kind of devastating power this monster is preparing to release. Yuri suspects an invisible shockwave, but Rei recognizes this power from his past life. He knows he must dodge it to survive. Determined to end this nightmare, Rei imbues his sword with his power, making it clear that now it is his turn. He charges headlong at the shadow of Kronos, shouting that this fight ends right here. But the creature only responds with a chilling smile that terrifies him. When the shadow effortlessly nullifies his attack, the monster doesn't hesitate to strike back, sending Rei crashing away. Aya screams out in worry as Rei is thrown back, leaving her to wonder what kind of force just hit him. Oikawa Hikaru expects to quickly reclaim the shadow into his box, but he's met with a shock. Yuri approaches the blonde mage to ask why the retrieval is failing. He admits trying, but he admits the Chronos shadow is actively resisting his skill, a phenomenon that leaves everyone on edge as he grows increasingly worried. Staring at the terrifying entity, Oikawa realizes he has no idea what kind of monster this truly is. Suddenly, Aya and Yuri charge forward, refusing to stand by while Rei struggles. They call out to Rei, vowing to join the fight. Rei tries to warn them off, but Aya ignites her high furnace ability as Yuri readies her mana conversion.
The shadow resists being.
Yuri charges the shadow with her massive scythe while Aya amplifies her power, but their strike is completely nullified,
leaving her stunned by the sheer is happening before the shadow hurls her and Aya violently against the rock wall. Rei shouts in terror, while Oikawa apologizes, desperate to fix the disaster by channeling everything he has to restrain the shadow's terrifying power at any cost. Oikawa activates a resistance inhibitor to contain the entity, thinking he has gained control, but the creature simply smiles.
With effortless grace, it completely shatters.
Inhibitor with ease, leaving Rei and Oikawa in absolute shock as the chaos erupts. Rei realizes he needs a plan to survive this nightmare. He tells Oikawa to stand back, demanding to face the shadow alone. Sheathing his sword, Rei refuses to let his past trauma dictate his future. In his previous life, he ran from Kronos, but he won't run again. He stands his ground. Charging the nightmare, Rei narrowly dodges a lethal sword slash from the creature's massive blade. Seconds before impact, Rei declares his intent to steal the shadow's variability. Rei activates his draining ability, and a terrifying black energy begins to devour the shadow's body. The creature realizes its defeat and starts screaming, as its very essence is dismantled. Within moments, the shadow vanishes entirely. Oikawa watches the aftermath, stunned by the display of power. He can't help but wonder what kind of ability that was and, looking at Rei, begins to question
what that ability was.
Who the colorless porter truly is. 3 days later, Oikawa and Yuri stand before a seated authority. Yuri prepares to report the incident to the powerful man known as the Blue King. Earlier, in a quiet corridor, Yuri was waiting when a figure approached, and she noted that the arrival was late. It was Oikawa, looking a bit embarrassed as he apologized for the delay. As they depart, Yuri reminds him how close she came to elimination because of his mistake, to which he admits he never expected such a chaotic outcome. Oikawa admits Rei is far more incredible than Yuri's initial report suggested, but as they approach the door, he wonders if the boy will be ignored. The heavy doors swing open. As the two enter to meet with the Blue King, Hojo Itsuki, Yuri apologizes for the sudden meeting right after her return from an overseas dungeon, but the king tells her not to worry about it. He claims he has been busy exploring dungeons in 10 different countries, noting that with such strict superiors, someone simply has to do the job. Yuri notes that since Hisuki is the Blue King, he must have been summoned to this meeting. He mentions the dungeon's difficulty matched the Ekabukuro dungeon they once conquered together. And, as Yuri observes him, she realizes he truly is a monster of talent. Suddenly, Itsuki stands up and asks if they can discuss the young man named Kurosaki Rei. After they both agree, the king finds Rei's feat incredible. Oikawa, equally stunned, suggests that Rei might actually be as strong as an S rank, or perhaps even stronger. Itsuki agrees that, apparently,
Rei's combat prowess is undeniable, but Yuri suspects there is a darker secret behind his ability to steal enemy skills.
Even so, Hojo Itsuki is clearly intrigued by the young man's potential, yet there is a weight to his gaze. The Blue King notes that he has a favor to ask the two women. Meanwhile, Aya celebrates their successful dungeon conquest with Rei.
This celebration is fleeting.
Aya's celebration is cut short when she asks about Yuri's sudden absence, but Rei merely mentions she had business to attend to. Suddenly, Hina Reina spots Rei and rushes toward him, looking quite concerned. Confused by her sudden intensity, Rei asks what is wrong. Hina Reina reveals the truth. Rei has been summoned by the Blue King directly. Following the summons, Rei arrives at the private quarters of the Blue King. There, Hojo Itsuki thanks him for coming to meet him face to face. As Rei stands before him, he begins to recall the man's legend from his previous life. Even among kings, Hojo Itsuki was a true color king, legendary for his impossible feats. His philosophy that the strong should guide the weak was a beacon of hope for Rei. He had wanted to be just like the Blue King, But that dream was shattered in his past life when Itsuki was killed in battle. He died acting as a shield for civilians, a true hero who saved millions. Ultimately, his sacrifice made him a hero who saved millions of lives. As Rei wonders why the Blue King summoned him, a sudden presence interrupts his thoughts, bringing a secret to light. The mystery unfolds. Itsuki steps in to take control of the conversation. He reveals that Yuri and Aya are members of the Apostles of the Sacred Staff, an elite group recruiting talent globally. The weight of their reputation hangs in the air. Itsuki admits he was the one who sent Oikawa to accompany the team, suggesting there was a hidden purpose behind the dungeon raid. Oikawa admits he caused some trouble just to witness Rai's true strength, while Yuri joins in, admitting she joined the Apostles simply because it looked fun. The Blue King steps forward, looking at Rei with genuine interest. He offers a proposition that could change everything, that if Rei truly possesses such power, he should join their ranks. However, Itsuki remains cautious about the mysteries of multicolor users, stating that before he can accept a new member, he must first witness the humanity behind the mana. As the leader, Itsuki poses a vital question. What does Rei truly want? Rei falls into thought, searching for an answer. He remembers his childhood when he used to look up to Itsuki with nothing but pure admiration, and remembers the pain of his brother, Kurosaki Kai, despising him, the very reason he fought so hard to change his fate. To confront a god like Kronos, Rei realizes he must reach a level of power beyond his wildest dreams, to become stronger. So he answers that he wants to surpass everyone else. He strikes his chest, realizing that mere admiration won't change his fate. He declares to Itsuki that he will become stronger than him. Itsuki asks if that means he intends to become a king of color himself. Rei clenches his fist, haunted by the knowledge that even the Blue King couldn't stop the god in his past life. But the conversation is only just beginning, for Rei and Aya are taken aback by the sudden invitation. Moments later, Rei and Aya walk down a long corridor, following Oikawa's lead. They enter a room where the elite apostles of the Sacred Staff are gathered. One member mocks him as a mere kid, while another notes that Kurahashi is waiting to meet him. The newcomer settles down after a brief apology. Oikawa then prepares to explain the Blue King's new request. Oikawa explains that 2 high-level dungeons require split teams for the upcoming mission, so he heads to Mokuhari with several others, leaving the rest behind. With Shiroi and Azuma, consequently, Rei's group is assigned to the Tama dungeon, along with Kurahashi, who is clearly furious about joining the rookie squad. Yuri asks if he's unhappy, but Kurahashi just shouts in denial. Aono Yuri watches. Oikawa insists Kurahashi has seen the report, noting Rei's 3 mana colors as proof of his skill. However, Kurahashi dismisses the talent, claiming that variety doesn't guarantee strength, just like the legendary Kurosaki Kai. Kurahashi reveals a shocking truth. Kurosaki Kai was once a member of the Apostles of the Sacred Staff, known as Kurosaki Kai, but he was hardly a peer to them. Rei realizes this explains why Yuri also called his brother disappointing. It seems Kai's reputation among the elite is nothing more than a shadow. But Kurahashi isn't done, arguing that many mana colors are an illusion and to prove that a mage actually possesses real power. He turns his gaze toward Rei, suggesting the Ikebukuro dungeon victory was merely a fluke aided by Oikawa, and then Anne, staring coldly, asks. Then Anne stares Rei down, coldly asking if he realizes that the weak should simply stay in the shadows. Rei smiles as his friend stands up for him, even as Kurahashi bristles with annoyance. Oikawa brings the room to order, confirming that the teams are set to conquer the 2 targeted dungeons. He then directs a challenge toward Kurahashi, insisting the redhead witness Rei's true power firsthand. Once the meeting adjourns, Rei realizes he must prove his strength to the skeptic, but proving himself is not enough, because to truly face Kronos, he needs even more powerful allies by his side. The next day, the group enters the Tama dungeon, a place crawling with terrifying monsters. The monsters don't wait, and as Rei prepares to suggest a team strategy, Kurahashi shuts him down. To the redhead, cooperation is nothing more than a boring waste of time. Instead, he prepares his blazing explosion ability to charge the monsters. A single punch triggers a massive blast, instantly wiping them out. With a provocative laugh, Kurahashi taunts Rei, betting he can't match that power. He declares he'll hunt everything alone, telling the colorless porter to just stay out of the way. Rei can only laugh, but he offers a quick apology to the others. Kurahashi turns with a fierce expression, determined not to lose to the redhead. Aya tries to call out to her friend, but he has already dashed off at full speed. As she watches him go, Yuri suggests they just let the boys play their games. Rei tears through the creatures in his path, realizing his movements are finally getting a little better. While Aya and Yuri watch the chaotic brawl unfold. Aya, the whole scene is a complete mess.
Yuri wonders if Aya finds Rei's ability to keep pace with Kurahashi amazing, noting that the redhead is actually an idiot when it comes to teamwork. Kurahashi's massive mana allows him to sweep through hordes of enemies, earning him the title of a monster slayer. Remarkably, even against such a force, Rei is managing to keep up. As the group reaches the end of the hall, Aya stands open-mouthed, wondering if they are really about to encounter the boss already, since only 10 minutes have passed since they entered the dungeon. Yet Rei feels a surge of unprecedented power as he competes with the redhead. Rei focuses on the battle ahead as Kurahashi dismissively tells him not to get in his way. Suddenly, a terrifying sight appears above, a creature with tentacles and a sinister eye. Before anyone can react, a massive shockwave erupts from behind Rei, and monsters he previously defeated are suddenly hurled into the boss room. The creatures scramble toward the boss and are instantly absorbed by its mass, after consuming several at once. The Tama dungeon boss transforms into a chimera beast of unknown level. The creature's eye snaps open, locking its gaze onto Rei's group. Aya watches in terror, wondering if the boss truly absorbed the
monsters.
Rei realizes the chimera is growing stronger through this consumption, but something feels wrong. Even with his memories of the past, he has never encountered a monster this unnatural. He warns the redhead to be cautious, though Rei himself refuses to show any fear. He charges into the fray with a massive, explosive blow that shakes the dungeon. As the dust clears, Aya wonders if Rei has actually finished it, but Kurahashi is paralyzed by a horrifying sight. The boss effortlessly blocked his strike with a single arm and is already swinging a counterattack. On the verge of being hit, he can only watch in shock. Rei doesn't waste time and activates his mana, hand rushing straight toward Kurahashi to grab him. Before the boss can land a killing blow, once safe, Rei asks if he's okay. Despite his trembling voice, Kurahashi insists he won't lose to a colorful like Rei, but the bravado fades as Rei watches the chimera's very arm where the blow landed suddenly rip itself off in a gruesome display. Rei stares in confusion as something begins to happen at the severed stump, and a brand new arm rapidly regrows. Kurahashi watches in horror as the chimera begins channeling a focused attack. Sensing the impending danger, Rei realizes something catastrophic is coming and attack. Rei screams at everyone to dodge before the boss unleashes its powerful strike. Everyone leaps aside from the energy barrage, but the resulting explosion is massive, throwing Aya into the blast zone.
Struggling to
rise. The exhausted mage asks Yuri about that terrifying firepower. Yuri believes the creature cannot fire again so soon. Seizing the moment, Aya launches her own ability at the chimera. The beast folds its wings and withstands the strike, proving the resilience of the monster. Kurahashi managed to burn. Rei realizes they are trapped. If they stay on the defensive, the monster's lethal laser will return. Rei analyzes the chimera's movements, realizing they must strike the main body before its defensive arms can intercept him. Therefore, he calls out to Aya, asking if she can use her mana fusion on Kurahashi. Aya hesitates, stunned that Rei would suggest using her ability on the redhead, but he gives a firm command, and she begins channeling her massive power. Aura surges through Kurahashi as Aya activates mana fusion, leaving him reeling from the sudden influx of strength. Rei warns that they are running out of time and shouts for Kurahashi to strike. With no other choice, the enhanced mage launches his assault, forcing the chimera to throw its arms up in a desperate defense. Kurahashi pushes his limits, pouring every ounce of mana into unleashes a blazing explosion that leaves Aya in awe of his immense firepower. But as the dust settles, Kurahashi's shock grows deep. The chimera didn't just survive his blast, it's already channeling a lethal laser to fire. Hina Reina screams for him to get out of the way. Terrified, Kurahashi realizes his empowered strike wasn't enough, but Rei charges past him, declaring that the opening was perfect. As the hero prepares his next move, Kurahashi watches in stunned silence, observing Rei's surging power, and wonders if he is witnessing the legendary black mana. Rei lunges forward just as the chimera releases its deadly laser, unleashing his ultimate ability, Abyss Flame, striking the chimera squarely and fulfilling his true potential. Watching from the sidelines, Kurahashi wonders what kind of monster Rei truly is, stunned that his own abilities failed where Rei's did. Even more, he is struck by the sheer determination Rei showed to break through the darkness. A laugh of pure excitement escapes him as he wonders if this man is even real. Meanwhile, the next day in the bustling city center, news of the Tama dungeon conquest begins to spread. Kurosaki Kai watches a broadcast on a massive screen, hearing the public praise his brother's incredible feats. But the praise carries a sting, as bystanders whisper that Rei's rapid rise is only making his brother's situation worse. The comment lingers in the air. Kai leaves quietly, but he is far from pleased. Ri explains that they faced a new species of monster, prompting Azuma to laugh, and Shiroi to express regret for missing the spectacle. The tension shifts when Oikawa calls Kurahashi to ask for his honest assessment of Rei's performance. Looking awkward, the redhead admits that Rei isn't so bad, noting that he even developed a remarkably effective strategy. Rei listens, stunned by the unexpected praise, but Shiroi isn't finished. Shiroi needles Kurahashi about his change of heart, forcing the embarrassed man to take a deep breath. Pointing a finger at Rei, Kurahashi finally offers a clumsy apology for having underestimated him and for his insults regarding his mana, but Rei just laughs it off, noting that Kurahashi's help was invaluable and that no apology is necessary. Stunned by this kindness, Kurahashi quickly turns away, insisting he only acted for his own sake, to avoid giving Rei any wrong ideas. Stunned by the response, just chuckle at the redhead's defensive, calculating nature. Watching them, Hojo Itsuki smiles, glad that the two have finally become friends. Then the Blue King reaches out with a gift.
Ri looks on in surprise as Itsuki reveals it is the sacred symbol of the group, representing a prestigious honor.
And with that, the Blue King officially welcomes Kurosaki Rei into the Apostles. Itsuki makes it clear that while Rei can keep working with his current team, he's truly interested in having them fight by his side. Rei grips his fist, accepting the Blue King's hand with a determined promise. It's a moment of genuine validation, and even Aya realizes just how incredible her friend has become. Kurahashi laughs, claiming he'll train Rei well as a new companion. But Yuri quickly interrupts him. She insists that the redhead is the one who actually needs some lessons. Kurahashi tells her to mind her own business, while Itsuki watches the growing bonds between the team members, satisfied that putting the two together was the right choice. Oikawa realizes that if they had recognized Rei's potential sooner, Kurahashi would have fought against it, making the Blue King seem even more clever than usual. Itsuki, satisfied that everything is proceeding according to his plan, prepares to make a life-changing suggestion. With a hand extended, Itsuki offers Rei a title that changes everything, the chance to become the Black King. Ri can only stand there, completely blindsided by the weight of the request. Meanwhile, deep within a dungeon, Kurosaki Kai begins to feel a sense of mounting dread. As Goto shouts for him to use his overclocking ability, Kai reaches for that power, but nothing happens, leaving him visibly shaken and nervous. Oik scolds Goto for his stupidity delivering the harsh reality. Kai lost the ability to overclock on the very day he faced Rei. Elsewhere, Kai is pushing his team to their limit, demanding to know why they aren't moving forward. Goto is exhausted after 5 grueling days inside the dungeon, suggesting that they desperately need to stop. But Kai simply tells him to shut up and walks away, insisting that they must keep going. Goto watches in shock, wondering if following Kai's descent into madness is truly safe. Oik dismisses his concerns as nonsense and starts running, insisting they must support Kai during this incredibly difficult time. While alone, Kai marches deeper, obsessed with conquering the dungeon, until a memory of a girl's approach resurfaces. A reporter's question about his older brother leaves Kai perplexed, fueling a growing frustration he can't quite escape. The truth is even worse than he imagined. Even the Blue King is talking about his brother's accomplishments. As people continue to look down on him, Kai's anger boils, driving him to prove he is the strongest warrior of all. Meanwhile, in another dimension, Kronos, the god of time and space, watches the chaos with a slight smile, having found an interesting pawn. The following day, Kai's thoughts drift back to the day the dungeons first appeared and changed the world forever. This power marked a turning point for him, since, as a rare 2-color mage, his potential is a 1-in-a-million miracle that grants him immense power. He's even discovered a special ability that gives him an edge that feels truly satisfying. Because of his talent, he's even managed to gain distanced, respectful treatment from his teachers. They've learned to keep their distance. Kai loves this status, where everyone looks up to him. At school, people hover around him with constant flattery, and even his parents, who once kept their distance, now praise him. Even the prestigious apostles of the sacred staff accepted him as their youngest member. But eventually, those elites grew rude, forcing Kai to leave when it became clear they failed to recognize his true potential. But one thing remained certain. That certainty was waiting for him in his room. On a single fateful day, Kai's resentment festers because his brother didn't treat him differently, despite Kai's lack of talent. Even worse, that sibling gaze suggested Kai might one day catch up, and the idea, furious, to Kai. An elite should never look at a commoner as an equal. He felt a desperate need to prove he was the strongest, to force his brother to see they lived in different worlds. But the unexpected has happened. Even Kai is blindsided because his brother has already surpassed him. While walking through the city, Kai tries to focus on his royal status, but suddenly, Kurahashi calls out to him, noticing his obvious distress. Kurahashi remarks that Kai seems to be quite upset. Kurosaki Kai, Kurosaki Kai erupts in a fury, denying he was ever cast out of the Apostles of the Sacred Staff and instead claiming he left by choice. Giving orders? Ignoring Kurahashi's presence, Kai lashes out, insisting the Blue King was simply jealous of his immense talent. He then sneers at the mention of his brother, claiming Rei is nothing more than a dead weight. But his bravado is hollow. Even Kurahashi refuses to entertain Kai's bitterness. Kurahashi's expression turns deadly serious as he shuts Kai down, telling him to hold his tongue. Nervous, Kai desperately clings to his title as Kurosaki Kai, shouting that no one should compare a high-ranking mage to his trash of a brother. Kurahashi just laughs at such arrogance, revealing that Kai is completely in the dark. He drops a bombshell. Rei has been recommended to become a king by the Blue King himself. The news leaves Kai utterly stunned. He questions if Rei's potential is real, but Kurahashi isn't interested in such meaningless titles. Instead, Kurahashi delivers a brutal truth. Rei is already far stronger than Kai. He even asks Kurosaki Kai if he doesn't agree that Rei is the one truly fit to be a king. The insult triggers a dark memory in Kai. The bitter feeling of being left behind by his older brother surpassed him so far, leaving him to realize too late he is. As Kurahashi departs, Godo and Oik approach Kai to say that preparations for the next dungeon are finished. Oik suggests they leave for now, but Kai refuses, demanding they tackle one more dungeon immediately. His companions plead for rest, but they are ignored by a man blinded by spite, driven by pure fury. Kai refuses to let Rei surpass him. Inside the dungeon, his team senses danger as they approach a strange boss room, and Godo remarks that he has never seen a monster quite like this one. Ignoring their warnings, Kai slams open the boss room door, shouting that he is the strongest and will prove it to everyone. But as they step inside, they are met by a strange creature, a level 20 malignant slime. Refusing to listen, Kai prepares his demonic spear skill, determined to eliminate the creature instantly. He launches the powerful attack, and the malignant slime is hit directly by the force, appearing to be obliterated. Godo and Oik cheer, thinking Kai managed to destroy it with just a single blow, but their celebration is short-lived. In a heartbeat, both men are eliminated. Stunned, Kai watches as his companions' bodies drop like sacks of potatoes, while the slime moves toward him at high speed, expanding its mass the moment Kai realizes the danger. The creature's body spreads, and in a terrifying flash, Kurosaki Kai is completely swallowed by the monstrous creature. Desperate, Kai tries to ignite his purple flames, but his very ability is the slime quickly dissipates his ability. Then, the monster begins to invade Kai's body through his mouth, eyes, and ears. As the slime completely envelops Kurosaki Kai, Kronos, the god of space and time, smiles within his own realm. He believes he has finally obtained a new pawn to play his divine games. Back in the physical world, Kurosaki Kai stands up, seemingly unfazed by the ordeal. While he claims to feel great, something is shifting deep within a sealed dungeon. A sudden tremor shakes the darkness. One of the heavy chains restraining the god suddenly snaps. The god laughs, realizing that part of his seal has finally broken. Meanwhile, at the outdoor training facility of the Apostles of the Sacred Staff, the atmosphere is much calmer. Kurosaki, Rei, and Kurahashi are locked in intense training, battling through waves of creatures. Once the creatures are defeated and return to their crystals, Oikawa Hikaru suggests a break. Aya approaches her friend, praising his skill after watching Kurahashi. Kurahashi acts embarrassed, insisting it was nothing special. Before turning to Rei to mention he saw his brother earlier in the city, the redhead's words hang in the air. The tension lingers as Kurahashi remains defensive, but a deeper rift is revealed. The redhead's nervous denials do nothing to hide the growing tension between these complicated allies. Meanwhile, Rei drifts into thought, wondering exactly when he and his brother began to lose their way. The weight of his past life haunts him, leaving him to fear if he can truly change their destiny. Suddenly, Shiroi the messenger rushes in with news that shatters the peace. Oikawa Hikaru asks what is wrong, but Shiroi's words are far more dire. The Shinjuku dungeon has collapsed, sending waves of monsters into the city. In an instant, true chaos erupts as terror spreads through the center. The Apostles of the Sacred Staff rush toward the fray to combat the sudden onslaught. As Shiroi watches the destruction in disbelief, Yashiro and Azuma worry about the massive civilian casualties at stake. Even Kurahashi is left questioning the cause of this catastrophe. For Rei, the timing is chilling. In his previous life, this collapse wasn't supposed to happen for years. As the city falls into chaos, Oikawa Hikaru calls for order, declaring that the Blue King is too far away to arrive in time. Because help is delayed, the survivors must rely on themselves, making the evacuation of civilians their absolute top priority. The mages nod in agreement and quickly spread out to manage the crisis. In the midst of the panic, Ayano Yuri ruthlessly slaughters a shadowy wolf that targets a mother and child. Aya moves to assist the survivors, ensuring their safety. Elsewhere, Shiroi urges Kurahashi to be careful not to harm the very people he is trying to save. Using his barrier to create safe zones, Oikawa provides a lifeline for the panicked crowd. Rei watches the elite group, impressed by how they remain steadfast despite the overwhelming number of monsters. Reflecting on his past life, Rei hopes that this time, their unity will prevent the tragic casualties that once defined this disaster. They might just pull it off together. Suddenly, a massive stone hand erupts from the ground, shattering the peace. A monstrous figure emerges from the rubble. The boss has arrived. While a certain redhead views the giant as nothing more than an easy target, a looming shadow suggests otherwise. Ignoring the threat, Rei charges forward and unleashes the Abyss Flame, incinerating the enormous boss monster in a single devastating blow. Shiroi and Oikawa are both stunned by the display of power, and Rei thinks everything is going perfectly until a chilling voice cuts through the chaos. Rei turns paralyzed by shock as he hears a voice he knows all too well, demanding everyone stop their excitement, and discovers the unmistakable presence of his younger brother Kai, who is now radiating a terrifying dark mana. Rei stands frozen in disbelief, perplexed by this sudden change. Rei asks his brother what has happened to him, but Kai only laughs, wondering if his brother is asking about his power or his intent to crush him, appearing behind Rei to strike, forcing him to narrowly dodge a lethal blow from his own brother. Kai mocks Rei's agility before charging again. Intent on making sure his brother doesn't think he can escape him, Rei desperately tries to block the onslaught. But as the strikes rain down, he realizes that his brother is clearly no longer human. The truth is far more terrifying than he imagined. A brutal blow catches Rei in the face, and looking closely at the man he once loved, sees that Kai has become a grotesque monster. Rei barely manages to leap back as Kai swings a devastating blow, leaving the warrior feeling a sense of deep disappointment. Kai stares at Rei's denial and begins to walk forward, claiming this transformation is Rei's own fault, a tool created specifically to eliminate him. Rei struggles to grasp why his own brother would want him dead, but Kai vanishes, reappearing instantly to strike him. But Kurahashi intervenes, landing a kick that sends Kai flying away, demanding that Rei stop standing around doing nothing during an emergency. Kurahashi lashes out at Kai's. In a bold move, he shouts out a truth that stuns everyone. Rei is actually his brother. Rei is shocked by the defense, but Kai remains cold and indifferent to any family ties. To Kai, this isn't about brotherhood, it's about proving who is the ultimate powerhouse. He gathers his overwhelming energy and unleashes a devastating strike that threatens the very people being evacuated. The chaos spreads. As the massive blast radius expands, Oikawa Hikaru leaps forward to shield the civilians with a barrier to protect the innocent. He desperately wants to assist the group, but he can't. Amidst the devastation, Kurosaki Rei begs his brother to stop the attacks, but Kai doesn't care, and tells the Kurosaki Rei to shut up. Listen to him. Kurosaki Kai only smiles, mocking his brother for being such a naive person. Suddenly, a strange sensation pierces Kai's mind, making him feel something. His mind. Kurosaki Rei notices the sudden change and screams out, but Kai has already lost all control. Losing all control, Kai unleashes a barrage of consecutive attacks, declaring this as the punishment for Rei looking down on him. The group watches the chaos unfold, and they have to scramble just to stay alive. Driven by a fractured mind, Kai demands to know if they truly admire his power. The tension rises. Deciding that words are useless, Kurahashi leaps into the sky to confront the madman. He activates his blazing explosion, going all out against Kai in a desperate strike. A massive explosion erupts, tearing through the air. Kurahashi's triumphant grin quickly fades into horror.
Cause Kai
Effortlessly blocks the blast with a single hand and readies a devastating counterattack. With a sinister smile, Kai strikes at the bird head, who realizes he is far too slow to defend himself, leaving him wide open for the impact to his stomach. Rei watches in pure disbelief as his own brother delivers a crushing blow to Kurahashi. Kai drops Kurahashi's body to the ground and channels his demonic flames, dismissing the others with pure contempt. Rei shouts, terrified for Kurahashi, but Kai does not care and unleashes his devastating magic toward the target. But the blast is suddenly halted by an unexpected barrier that leaves Kai looking thoroughly annoyed. Yellow King faces him down and activates a square box ability to trap Kurosaki Kai.
Oh, I know, Yuri asks.
Oikawa to wait, warning that using such power against a human will place a massive burden on the user, but he insists he cannot forgive someone who hurts his friends. However, Kai will not be contained. It comes at a massive cost, is proving far more taxing than the Yellow King expected, as the mere effort of maintaining the seal tears through his own mana. Aya screams in terror as she watches Oikawa's struggle while the blonde mage realizes just how heavy this burden has become. Still, he is determined to seal Kurosaki Kai, regardless of the cost. But the Yellow King simply tells Oikawa to go to hell and shatters the seal entirely. As Oikawa collapses from exhaustion, Kai steps forward, vowing to crush any plan that stands in his way. Yet he suddenly feels his left arm trembling. Kai mutters that his body isn't in perfect condition, leaving a deeply worried Yuri to wonder how a man who just survived a sealing ability could be struggling like this. Kai turns his back to depart, but before he leaves, swearing with a terrifying gaze that he will personally eliminate him next time. With a final chilling shout for his brother to just wait, Kai flies off into the distance. By the following day, the fallout of the battle has left the city in total chaos. While mages fought to save them, the news shows a world gripped by panic and destruction. As people realize the true scale of the monster outbreak, frantic shouts for immediate evacuation echo through the streets, leaving Oikawa to watch the unfolding disaster from afar. Society is beginning to panic because of the monsters, but the true concern is the fallen Purple King, wondering what to do as. The situation is rapidly deteriorating. Elsewhere, an official informs the Blue King that the responsibility lies with him. He insists he will certainly handle the matter. Meanwhile, at the emergency room, Riei waits outside, consumed by guilt because his failure to stop his brother led to Kurahashi's injuries and until Yuri appears to pull him back to reality, calling his name. Aya tells him it's fine, but as the arrival of the others cannot soothe his conscience, the heavy silence is broken as Itsuki reveals that he has already consulted with the primary color kings. Aya's surprise is evident, but Yuri notes that even in this crisis, the power to give orders lies with them. Even the most elite mages are shaken by a king who has descended into madness. Itsuki rises from his throne, walking toward Rei to deliver a chilling verdict. They will subjugate Kurosaki Kai, his own brother. Shiroi clarifies the weight of that choice, but Oikawa quickly counters, agreeing that the Blue King is correct. They must end this threat before more victims fall. Oikawa adds that they have found Kai's location, and he intends to join the mission. Desperate, Rei begs for another way, pleading with Itsuki to simply imprison his brother instead of killing him. Hojo Itsuki remains unmoved, declaring that the subjugation of Kurosaki Kai will proceed tomorrow, regardless of Oikawa's strength. Rei stands paralyzed by this absolute decision. He watches the leaders debate, thinking of his brother's arrogance, yet he cannot shake the memory of their happier childhood days. Riei knows his brother's flaws, recognizing how much Kai loves to look down on others. But memories of their childhood make him wonder if there is truly no other way. Suddenly, Oikawa Hikaru's phone chirps, breaking the tension. The messenger's eyes light up as he checks the notification, shouting that Kurahashi has finally regained consciousness at the hospital, bringing a brief moment of hope to the group. Regained consciousness. The news of Kurahashi's message pierces Rei, fueling a desperate determination. Clenching his fists, he realizes he cannot abandon his brother Kai, even now. But Itsuki's verdict is absolute. The kings have decided the hunt for Kurosaki Kai will begin tomorrow afternoon, leaving Rei's desperate hopes hanging in the balance. The Blue King notes that the other primary kings haven't actually forbidden any intervention, a revelation that catches Rei off guard. Quickly grateful for the sudden opening, Rei realizes that a chance to save his brother might still exist. Yuri and Aya exchange a knowing glance before addressing the apostles of the sacred staff. Remembering their shared history before joining the organization, they declare their intent to stand by Rei's side. As Itsuki laughs,
The Blue King grants them permission to leave, though he warns that the deadline to subjugate Kurosaki Kai remains fixed for tomorrow afternoon.
Rei turns toward his new allies with renewed confidence. Rei gazes at the sky, swearing to rescue his brother no matter the cost. Meanwhile, on a remote island surrounded by strong waves, Kurosaki Kai sits alone under a massive tree. The next day, Rei's group arrives via speedboat near an island located in the south of Tokyo. Rei remains certain his brother is nearby, but his focus shifts when he spots Oikawa. The Yellow King offers a friendly greeting to the group. Aya questions why he has arrived, but Rei realizes Oikawa is here to keep watch. The S-rank mage smiles, explaining that he is following orders from the Blue King. He is here to monitor the island and participate in the subjugation as a member of the Apostles of the Sacred Staff. Oikawa uses his remaining strength to envelop the group in a protective magic barrier around the group. Oikawa admits he is still recovering from yesterday's battle, but hopes this defense will hold them safe for at least a minute. Rei considers if they arrived on the island just as Itsuki had predicted, wondering if that was Oikawa's true intent. Rei, thanks the S-rank mage, certain he can save Kai, but Oikawa's sudden alarm halts him, fearing Kai's power is real but his will is lost.
While Oikawa makes his plea, a darker shadow falls over the island's forests.
It is a throbbing agony that fuels a sudden poisonous hatred for his own brother. His frustration boils into pure hatred for his brother and the world alike, culminating in a single punch that shatters a massive tree in two. As the wood crashes, a terrifying dark fury consumes him, driving a desperate urge to destroy everything in his path. This isn't just rage, it's an intrusion. Kronos, the god of time and space, has begun to reach out from his prison, whispering through the darkness. With one of his imprisonment seals broken, his influence over Kai is growing, and the god's manipulation is becoming harder to resist. A violent surge of energy suddenly envelopes Kurosaki Kai, exploding upward, into the sky.
Ri's group watches in awe as the sudden intense power leaves everyone questioning its origin.
Oikawa becomes paralyzed with dread, fearing the absolute worst. Meanwhile, back at the site of the eruption, Kai begins to smile, but Kai only smiles, embracing the darkness as Then, a voice echoes in his mind, tempting him to rule as a king of destruction and become a demon. Kronos demands that Kai eliminate all mages and keep advancing until he destroys the entire world. Meanwhile, Rei stares intently toward the horizon where that terrifying power erupted.
He turns to Aya
And Yuri, asking if the two of them are ready to face what's coming. Yuri and Aya immediately agree to follow Rei's lead. Driven by a sense of duty, Rei leads them toward the island to find his brother. They quickly locate Kai, who greets them with chilling familiarity, having expected them to seek out the Blue King instead. Kurosaki Kai is momentarily confused by Rei's plea, but he quickly dismisses it, unleashing a dark power that signals his intent to destroy everyone in his path. Suddenly, he launches a devastating blast of dark power, and Rei is stunned by the sheer scale of the energy. Looking closely, he realizes that his brother has become even stronger since just yesterday. Stronger. Ascending into the air with dark energy, Kai declares war on humanity, vowing to start by killing Rei.
Smiles.
Rei prepares for the coming clash, calling out Kai's lifelong selfishness. Confusion flashes across Kai's face, but Rei isn't backing down. He declares that as an older brother, it is his duty to stop him. Kai sneers at the sentiment, demanding that Rei stop acting so all-powerful if he truly cares. But hearing his brother's lectures only fuel Kai's rage. As Yuri notes, the younger brother isn't listening to a word he says. Suddenly, Kai conjures a massive fireball, carving a brutal path of flames that separates the brothers. Yet lost, Kai bellows. Rei watches in horror as the searing heat surrounds his friends, his voice rising in panic for their safety. Yuri admits the sheer firepower is overwhelming, while Aya realizes that if this continues, nothing will be left standing. Kai ensures the group stays back, making it clear that Rei is being sacrificed to ensure no one interferes. With the area cleared, Kai aims to transform this into a duel, intending to finally prove his absolute power. Ri asks what could possibly be worth this, questioning the very reason his brother fights, but Kai simply scoffs, believing Ray still doesn't understand. To Kai, power is the only justice, a truth born when the dungeons appeared and changed the world forever. He believes that without strength, no one will ever notice you exist or give you any attention. Summoning an evil spear, Kai vows to make Ray understand his worth through the devastation of this battle. Ray readies his abyssal flames, realizing the raw power radiating from his brother is far more overwhelming than before. The abyss flames clash with Kai's demon spear, and the impact forces Kai to recognize the ability from their previous duel. Driven by fury, Kai prepares a new finishing blow. Ri refuses to stay on the defensive. He coats his body in mana and lunges toward Kai. He's moving, but as Kai lashes out with lethal claws, a sudden barrier erupts between them, catching Kai completely off guard. Thinking the shield belongs to Oikawa, Kai's focus wavers for a split second. Ri seizes the opening, driving a mana-enhanced punch directly into his brother's stomach. Ri is thrown hard onto the ground, and Aya, witnessing the chaos instantly, asks if Ray has managed to secure a victory. Impact leaves him questioning if his brother's transformation is the reason he cannot steal his abilities. Then Kai stands up.
Ray is stunned that his brother endured the direct hit, and then
he notices a strange dark energy swirling in Kai's chest. This corruption is causing Kai to spiral, and the realization is terrifying. Kai is increasingly agitated, seeing Oikawa and everyone else. It seems they have all chosen to follow him. Becoming nervous, Kai begins wondering why Ray is working so hard to stop him. Then, he lowers his head, consumed by an overwhelming irritation. Suddenly, Kai lets out a furious shout and releases a tremendous surge of power, making Ray wonder if this dark energy is a direct reaction to his brother's rising emotions. Kai gathers dark orbs, looking like he's preparing several different abilities, but Ray knows his full overclock. Then, the situation takes a terrifying turn as Kai prepares even more abilities using the Tris Decade, a tool that leaves Ray wondering how his brother is deploying so much magic without. It shouldn't be possible for his brother to cast so many abilities without activating overclock. Ri can only watch as the attacks collide, triggering a massive explosion. Exhausted from the intense output, Kai breathes heavily, believing his victory is finally secured. Yet he erupts into laughter, mocking Ray for trying to act like an older brother when their power gap is absolute. As the dust settles, Ray looks at the victor and asks why. Despite this win, he still looks so incredibly sad. Kai is caught off guard. Recognizing the volatile mana, Ray realizes the power in Kai's hands is none other than Kurahashi's ability. Driven by desperation, Ray channels that stolen power into his fist, determined to bring his brother back, no matter the cost. Kai sneers, noting that Kurahashi's blazing explosion is quite effective for stopping a demon spear. As the heat fades, Ray closes his eyes, drifting back to the memory of the redhead and the conversation they shared earlier in the hospital, when Kurahashi asked if Ray would truly accept his gift. Kurahashi had agreed, unable to fight anymore, and pleaded with Ray to use his draining ability. Thus, he told Ray to do it for him. Recalling that final wish, Ray screams at his brother to finish this. Ri channels everything into Kurahashi's blazing explosion. Kai is forced to take flight as he watches his brother's mana conversion, the power of unleashed. Dodging the strikes, Kai wonders if Ray is now utilizing Yuri's powers. Ray focuses his intent and produces a massive fireball. Kai blocks the strike, grumbling that this is getting annoying, until he is suddenly stunned by the sight of a new attack. As Ray launches the devastating explosive furnace, Kai realizes the sheer magnitude of the power. A massive explosion rocks the sky, leaving Ray gasping for air after such a relentless barrage of abilities. As the smoke clears, Kai begins to laugh like a madman, leaving Ray completely bewildered. Through the haze, Kai realizes why he can no longer access his overclock. A twisted realization dawns on him. Ray's many powers exist only because other mages treating them like mere fuel. Kai claims that by making these gifts his own, Ray is essentially agreeing to sacrifice his allies. Ray screams that he's completely misunderstood the truth, but Kai isn't finished. Silencing the protest, Kai delivers his final, crushing accusation. He points to the comrades who were lost, those who perished, because Ray stole their overclock ability. Leaving his former group weakened and vulnerable, Kai declares that this is the ultimate price of his brother's greed. He screams that Ray's theft is the reason his friends were eliminated, implying that he is nothing more than a monster. Kai believes they are no different, both monsters who sacrifice others to gain strength. Ray starts to clench his fists tightly, the weight of his choices finally crushing his spirit. His theft of his brother's ability has brought them to this nightmare. He knows he must change his path to save humanity from Kronos, but he can't help but wonder if he can ever truly accept this stolen power. Kai's eyes remain cold, offering no room for hesitation. He shouts that regret is useless now, but if Rei wants a fight, he will provide one by rushing straight at him. Kai unleashes a barrage of attacks, closing the distance with terrifying speed. The impact is relentless as the combat escalates. As the strikes rain down, Kai demands to know what Rei thinks of the power he stole. Rei shouts that they are essentially the same, even as he delivers a massive punch that should have crushed him, but something goes wrong. Kai stares in shock as the blow lands directly on him without Rei flinching. Confused by the lack of evasion, Kai demands to know why Rei didn't dodge. Rei reaches out to his brother, touching his arm to apologize as he begins returning the stolen overclock ability. He admits the power was stolen, but insists that true strength exists only to protect others. As Rei unleashes his own surging mana, he warns Kai that his current path is completely wrong, sending the powerful mage flying back with the sheer force of the release. Channeling a new power, Rei thinks of the companions who entrusted their abilities to him, holding on to the weight of their trust. By uniting the abilities of his companions, Rei achieves something impossible. He reaches into the swirling energy and pulls out a pitch-black sword that radiates an overwhelming, terrifying pressure. Darkness. Stunned by this sudden surge of shadow, Kai watches his brother brandish the weapon, calling for him to end this nightmare once and for all. Rei points the void-like blade at his sibling, demanding that Kai face the truth. Refusing to back down, Kai raises a demonic spear, screaming that Rei is nothing more than a thief, relying only on the stolen strength of others. But the insults are cut short when a massive black slash slices through the air, completely shattering Kai's spear and leaving him in shock. As his weapon vanishes, Kai realizes Rei's power is exactly what he feared. Rei senses it. A sinister energy pulsing from the core in Kai's chest is the true source of his corruption. To stop this, he closes his eyes, firmly gripping the sword. And he knows this isn't about victory or morality. This strike is solely to save his brother, fusing Kurahashi's explosion, Yuri's mana conversion, and Oikawa's barrier resistance into one ultimate weapon. By weaving Yuri's mana conversion and the resilience of Oikawa's barrier, Rei crafts a terrifying black ability that melds their powers together. But Kai remains defiant, screaming that he will never depend on anyone and will use only his own strength. Driven by spite, Kai activates his overclock ability, releasing a massive surge of dark energy that erupts through the entire area, leaving Rei startled by the sheer scale of the power. Rei wonders if this madness is merely a byproduct of his brother's overclocked state, but then a slight smile touches Rei's lips, causing Kai to demand why a loser is. Smiling, Rei replies that even if he is powerless against Kai's immense strength, his brother's weakness won't cause him to abandon himself. Incredible. Rushing forward at high speed, Rei vows to wake Kai up, no matter how many times it takes. Kai challenges him to try, insisting that he will still be the winner in the end. Then, he unleashes his power. Brother, Rei clashes. On with the onslaught as Kai screams, as Kai shouts that he will never lose again, because this struggle is the very reason for his existence. Rei channels Aya's power into his strike, preparing to activate the explosive furnace. The abyss blade surges with amplified strength, slicing clean through his brother's onslaught. Rei pushes forward, slamming into Kai with the full force of his momentum. Kai is sent flying back, tossed with such violent force that Rei rushes to his side, promising that no matter the cost, he will be the only one left standing. As the dust settles, Kai begins to drift back into his memories, remembering a time when Rei was younger and always capable. A moment of quiet reflection amidst the devastation. Kai was always so far ahead, and he tried his best to stay close to his brother. But Kai's talent was a wall no matter what, making it impossible to ever truly defeat him. As the pride of the family, Kai was always surrounded by people. Feeling he couldn't join that circle, he felt isolated. He stopped pushing and began to withdraw completely. He distanced himself to protect others from his own pain. Yet even so, Kai was always by Rei's side, unaware of the silent bond. Kai never cared about winning or losing. He only knew Rei had always been his big brother. Looking at the carnage of the present, watching the chaos unfold, he wonders if they are truly still the same. As Kai regains consciousness, tears stream down his face, and he begins to realize how wrong everything has become. Sobbing, he cries out for his brother, but the relief is short-lived. Kai's presence alone isn't enough to stop the sudden agony that strikes Rei. As Rei collapses, Aya rushes to his side in a panic, but he can only manage a tired laugh, trying to hide the exhaustion that threatens to overwhelm him. Then the atmosphere shifts violently as a terrifying dark energy starts erupting from Kai's body. The darkness surges outward, manifesting into a massive, looming shape that leaves Rei paralyzed with terror at the sight of it. He stares in horror as he recognizes the threat.
A level 91 evil sludge. This monstrosity is the very thing that destroyed his life in the timeline before his regression.
The chaos is so immense that the public can barely comprehend the reality unfolding before them. After the madness, the possessed mage erupts, transforming into a monster that levels an entire city and is
the very evil sludge that arrived to destroy everything. Ri tries to stand, but his body fails him. Yuri and Aya immediately step forward to intercept the threat.
When Rei attempts to help, Yuri tells him to shut up, insisting he's in no condition to fight. Aya echoes the command, telling him to get out.
Rie obeys, but not before returning the stolen mana conversion to Yuri and the furnace to Aya.
With their true powers restored, the two mages prepare for combat. Yuri turns to Aya, noting that she will lead the charge and asks for cover. Suddenly, Oikawa Hikaru, the S-rank Yellow King, arrives to offer a hand to the exhausted group. He laughs, mocking Rei for the impossible task of bringing his brother back to sanity.
Ri manages a nod, confirming the feat as he returns the barrier ability to the blonde S-rank mage.
Oikawa's gaze turns grim as he looks at the nightmare before them. The evil sludge lets out a deafening roar ready to strike, demanding they expel it immediately. Aya prepares to support the fight, while Yuri notes that it has been ages since she fought alongside Oikawa.
The Yellow King promises to follow her lead, so
Yuri charges toward the creature, urging Oikawa to provide cover. He prepares his abilities and tells her to stay calm as
Yuri uses mana conversion to create a staircase, climbing high toward the sludge.
But as she approaches, the monster strikes only for Oikawa to step in and block the blow. Oikawa vows that the monster won't get away with this. With Oikawa providing cover, Yuri jumps high into the air, determined to crush the creature's head as she prepares to strike the sludge's head directly. Aya watches with hope, thinking the battle is finally over, but Yuri's eyes widen in horror when she sees that her massive attack has no effect on the evil sludge, which lunges to counterattack. She realizes that if it weren't for Oikawa's protective barrier, she would have been crushed instantly. Instead, the creature's monstrous strength shatters the defense and slams Yuri hard into the ground, leaving Oikawa shouting in terror for his friend.
Ri never expected the sludge to be this strong, but the real horror is just beginning.
As he tends to his brother, Rei recalls a terrifying truth from his past life. This sludge thrives by absorbing its host's mana. Because it has already devoured Kai's massive reserves, the creature's potential power is now immeasurable. The monster prepares to strike, its strength growing more volatile with every second of Kai's stolen essence. Oikawa screams a desperate warning: if that attack connects, it will be the end for everyone.
The sludge lunges forward for the kill, but suddenly,
a distant glow pierces the chaos, cutting through the darkness from far away. Then a figure streaks through the air at blinding speed, slamming directly into the colossal monster. Confusion washes over the survivors as the monster's sheer scale leaves everyone stunned. Rei turns to the side and
watches a figure
landing heavily as Azuma, a powerful fighter, greets the group. Then, he begins to laugh at Shirai for her strong aim before Yuri. Catching her breath reveals that he is not alone. Shirai and Yashiro, another fighter, arrive at the scene in time. Shirai bluntly comments on Yuri's battered state, prompting a sharp retort from the exhausted mage. Azuma finds the lack of tact hilarious, while Yashiro tells him he's just as bad. Ri wonders if there is still time before their operation begins. He asks Oikawa if he called for reinforcements, to which the blonde man replies that it's a good thing they arrived just in time. As the evil sludge rises once more, Azuma declares the creature is now the main culprit behind this chaos. He calls on Shirai and Yashiro to step up and avenge their fallen friends with a good show. The monster lashes out at Azuma, but he catches the massive blow and laughs, refusing to lose a contest of strength. Meanwhile, Shirai charges from the side, ready to engage the monster's focus. She rushes toward the beast, preparing for her assault, but she is forced to retreat, realizing she couldn't even leave a single scratch on the monster. Yashiro, however, notes that her distraction worked perfectly. He quickly activates his ice ability, freezing half of the creature's massive body in place. Watching from afar, Rei is stunned by their skill, noting it almost looks like they are playing with the monster.
The evil sludge.
Ri watches as the creature remains unscathed, wondering how anyone could hope to stop it. Suddenly, Oikawa stretches nonchalantly, declaring that the fight is over. Confused, Rei looks toward the blonde man for clarification. Oikawa simply laughs and asks if the Blue King doesn't agree. Hojo Itsuki, the Blue King, appears behind them and confirms the battle is finished. He immediately unleashes his devastating ability toward the evil sludge. The creature is struck and completely eliminated in a single, overwhelming blow. Stunned by the sheer magnitude of the destruction, Rei turns to observe. Watching Hojo Itsuki, he finally understands the true terrifying power of a primary color king. The tension breaks as the scene shifts to a hospital the next day. Kai wakes up suddenly, immediately asking where he is. Kurahashi notes that he has finally woken up. Kurahashi notes that Kai's confidence has vanished, which is understandable after being unconscious for an entire day. Kai begins to tremble as the memory of the possession flashes before his eyes. Frightened upon remembering the horror of his possession, the weight of his actions hits him, leaving him to question why he did those things. Haunted by guilt, he can only wonder at his own darkness. Kurahashi admits Kai was defeated, but points out that a monster had taken control of his body, meaning Kai wasn't acting alone. Even so, the redhead insists the threat is over now that the Blue King has defeated the creature, regardless of Kai's regrets. Kai stands and leaves the bed, asking if Kurahashi expects him to just accept this calmly before walking toward the door. Kai snaps back, declaring he can go wherever he wants. Kurahashi sighs, checking his phone and muttering that the mage is a pain in the neck after all. Meanwhile, at the Sacred Bastions organization, Hojo Itsuki praises the team for resolving the crisis, stressing that the hero of the moment was none other than Rei. Rei tries to brush off the praise, but Itsuki insists he be proud, noting that Rei prevented any casualties, a feat that even saved Kurosaki Kai, his brother, and accomplished a miracle. Rei offers a quick thanks, but his relief vanishes when his mind shifts back to his brother's fate. When his phone starts ringing, he apologizes, thinking it is Kurahashi. But he is stunned by the message he receives. As the weight of the situation settles, everything shifts to the dark depths of the Shinjuku dungeon. Kai is desperately apologizing to his friends, but Rei's sudden call interrupts his morning. When Kai asks what he wants, he can only respond with bitter self-loathing, calling himself pathetic for seeking power at the cost of his brother. Rei attempts to offer concern, mentioning how he heard discharged from the hospital far too quickly. The tension breaks as Rei notices something unexpected. Flowers held in his brother's hand. Overwhelmed by regret, Kai begins to weep, realizing that the loss of his friends was entirely his fault. As tears fall, his mind drifts back to a simpler time. He remembers protecting Oiken Goto from a group of thugs, an act that changed everything. Suddenly, they decided to follow him like disciples. Even though he told them to do as they pleased, they never left his side, trailing him all the way to graduation. The loyalty of those he protected only grew, with Oiken Goto following him into the heart of every dungeon. However, time passes, and then the weight of his position begins to take its toll on Kai's spirit. Even his most loyal followers were enough, yet he felt empty. Clenching his fists through his tears, he begins to wonder what the point of being a king is, if even with all those titles, he couldn't protect the friends he held dear. Desperate and broken, he calls his brother and delivers that he has given up being a mage, leaving Rei utterly shocked. Kai laughs bitterly, demanding to know how much more he must bow his head to atone for those who cannot rest while he lives in comfort. He declares his intent to flee abroad to a place where no one knows him, severing all ties. Rei shouts that he will never allow this to happen, but Kai has other plans. Kai realizes his mistakes have caused irreparable damage to the city, and no amount of seclusion can wash away the guilt of his failure. Closing his eyes to steady himself, Rei asks his brother if he truly intends to run away. A nervous Kai wonders if Rei even heard the gravity of his words, before shouting that he isn't running, but rather facing the brutal reality that he is powerless to change things. Rei refuses to back down, demanding to know who will stand against the next catastrophe. If mages as capable as Kai give up, reminding him of his title as Kurosaki Kai. Yet Kai only retorts that after being possessed and failing, he is now a danger to the very world he once protected. Rei's fury boils over as he refuses to let his brother hide from the consequences of failure. To truly redeem himself, he must face the darkness head-on, or the dead will never find peace. Kai stares back, skeptical of his brother's sudden wisdom, and demands to know what the porter actually understands about their situation. Surprised by the question, Rei begins to admit that he knows nothing. Yet, he realizes that because they have never truly argued, they have never truly known one another. They are strangers bound by blood and regret. Trying to find calm, Rei takes the weight upon himself. He carries a heavy confession. Rei believes that by carrying this sin, he can prevent such tragedies from ever recurring, but he knows he lacks the strength to stand alone when the next catastrophe strikes. Therefore, he reaches out with a desperate plea, asking Kai to join forces to use his immense strength to help Rei redeem them both. Kai is stunned by the proposal, thinking that Rei is simply being idealistic. To Kai, the incident was a reckless mistake caused by madness, and he fears the media's exposure will ruin Rei's reputation. He believes the safest path is for them to part ways forever. But even as Kai attempts to push him away, a flicker of hope remains. Ri's words linger in the air, leaving Kai to wonder if his brother truly intends to share the heavy burden of his sins. Thinking of their friends, Kai offers a small smile and takes Ri's hand, hoping he won't regret trusting him again. With a look of rare embarrassment, Kai insists Ri listen closely, because there's something he can only say once. He is deeply grateful to his brother for keeping him alive. Later, the brothers return to the hospital to visit Kurohashi. Kai grows increasingly awkward as he stares at the red-haired woman, seeing the scar his own attack left upon her. From a distance, the Blue King, Yashiro, Shirai, and Azuma observe the emotional reunion, watching as the chaos finally settles. Looking on, Shirai remarks that it seems things have finally been resolved. Itsuki takes charge, handling the aftermath of the chaos alone. Later, the Blue King meets with the other primary color kings to request Kai's continued custody. The Shinamyo and the Yellow King both show their acceptance, leaving Itsuki to gather his apostles and explain the upcoming Mage tournament. He reveals that 3 organizations, each under the primary color kings, will compete to reach the top. Rii listens with growing interest, knowing he must push his limits to face such talented opponents. In a sudden shift, Kai turns to his brother with a blunt proposition. He tells Ri it is time to finally embrace the title of the Black King. Rii tries to deflect the honor, but Kai insists that after being defeated by him twice, it would be embarrassing not to own the name. This bold claim sends Aya, Yuri, and Oikawa into fits of laughter. Even Kurohashi, Azuma, Yashiro, and Shirai join in the amusement. Annoyed by the laughter, Kai snaps, yet a new reality looms ahead. Ri realizes he must lead by example, and for that, he must finally embrace the weight of his new identity. Therefore, he makes the call to the Blue King to confirm his choice. Months later, the scene shifts to the highly anticipated public Mage tournament, an event drawing massive crowds. As the competitors enter, the audience erupts in applause for the primary color kings and their apostles. The excitement reaches a fever pitch when the Blue King and the apostles of the Sacred Bastion make their grand entrance, but even more attention is being drawn to a newly crowned sensation. Kurosaki Ri, the Black King. Approaching his brother, Ri tries to steady him, urging the Blue King to keep his head held high. Despite Kai's teasing about his regal uniform, Ri maintains his composure, accepting the daunting responsibility of his title. The crowd's roar shifts as they begin to call out, demanding the attention of Shina, the tournament official. The crowd focuses on Shinamyo, the Shinamyo whose immense popularity among female fans is legendary. The crowd whispers about the spectacle. Meanwhile, the legendary Yellow King, Oikawa Hikaru, leads the Apostles of Moonlight to victory with a calm, commanding aura. Meanwhile, the Yellow King, Oikawa Hikaru, leads the Apostles of Moonlight to victory with a champion's aura, appearing to many as the mentor to both the Blue and Red Kings. As the 3 kings approach one another, Shina greets her master, Oikawa, and emphasizes that Shinamyo's drive to surpass him is nothing new, though Oikawa suggests she is fundamentally misunderstanding the upcoming conflict. He warns that the results of this year will be no different. Walking away, he leaves the Shinamyo furious, but Shina notes that Oikawa's involvement is deeper than it seems. Determined, Shinamyo vows that as the old man's veteran disciple, she will not lose to the Blue King. From a distance, Ri watches Oikawa Hikaru, sensing a crushing pressure just by looking at the man who taught Itsuki. Oikawa appears silently behind the Yellow King, a quiet presence in the gathering crowd. As the ceremony begins, Shina prepares to speak, and she has something far more important than the rules to announce. She explains that with more dangerous dungeons appearing, strong mages are needed more than ever. Will only serve as mere substitutes for the true elite. Victory brings leadership, but defeat brings humiliation. This tournament is where mages risk their very pride. Ri worries that a loss could mean everything for them, but Shina holds up the prize, a document that grants the exclusive right to conquer dungeons first. To earn it, they must first claim the ultimate reward. She introduces the main prize of the day, the Lock Breaker. The Shinamyo and the other primary color kings begin channeling massive amounts of mana, and together, they cause the forest and the river to tremble. As even the rocky fields start to shift, suddenly a massive tower erupts from the earth, capped with a glowing key. The sheer scale of the display leaves the crowd questioning if this is even real. Ri realizes the elemental kings are pouring massive amounts of mana into this plane, wondering if true mastery of red, blue, and yellow mana could achieve such a feat. Shina points to the map, declaring that the first team to retrieve the key will win the tournament. 24 competitors, split into 12 teams of 2, will be dropped at random points to fight their way to the center. While alliances are permitted, the race toward the tower is about to turn into a war zone. Shina explains that while the tower is the goal, battles and even betrayals will be permitted under the rules, and she is eager to see them. Before the chaos begins, Shina announces a crucial rule. The previous year's winner must return the trophy. She calls forward Hiragi Shion of the Apostles of Moonlight to perform the duty. Watching the newcomer, Kai's face sours with irritation, visibly repulsed by the man's presence. Ria is stunned by Kai's reaction, immediately questioning if Shion truly defeated Oikawa. Kai. The revelation leaves Rei reeling, as such a defeat was unheard of even in his past life. Suddenly, Hiragi Shion snatches the microphone from Shina's hand. He makes his stance crystal clear. The trophy belongs only to the strongest, and he has only placed it there temporarily. Then he declares his intent. The moment he retrieves the prize, he will ascend to the title of the Yellow King. Fury erupts from Kai and Kurahashi at such blatant arrogance, leaving Rei wondering just who this man is. Yet, despite the chaos, the Yellow King remains silent. The ceremony ends, leaving only 5 minutes before a tournament that will decide the pride of mages. Ri approaches Oikawa Hikaru to ask about his past with the Moonlight Apostles. Oikawa takes a deep breath, finally admitting the truth about his exile. He was cast out after losing to Hiragi Shion, a reality that clashes with Rei's knowledge of a future where Oikawa was the true Yellow King. Ri realizes the timeline is shifting. If Shion wins, the history he remembers will be erased. To protect the timeline, he must avoid making too many major changes. Suddenly, Shina launches her ability into the air, and a massive explosion signals the tournament's explosive start. Ri, Shion's group, and the twin brothers all sprint forward at full speed. As the competitors dash ahead, Hina Reina observes the sudden rush of the crowd. Reiterate the rules. Every team must fight their way to the center of the map to reach the prize tower. Kai's recovery is already a sore subject. Kurahashi is livid, snapping at Kai for his lack of coordination, while Kai dismisses her complaints entirely. Observing the discord, Hina Reina notes that these apostles of the sacred staff are already causing trouble through their incredibly tense dynamic. Amidst the shouting and Kai's blunt demand for her to stay out of his way, 2 figures suddenly appear to block their path. The veteran winners have arrived, and they aren't looking for a fair race. Their presence turns the tournament into a battlefield. An apostle unleashes a sudden burst of mana, causing an explosion that forces Kai and Kurahashi to leap into the air to avoid. Being caught in the blast, the Shinamyo watches the chaos with amusement, noting that her rank A or higher specialists could have easily ignored the sacred staff apostles to focus on the real targets. Instead, she climbs atop a table and declares that a simple race is boring. She demands a head-on fight to decide the winner. A request is made for Shina to step down and calm the crowd. Kurahashi observes that since all teams are converging on the tower, conflict is inevitable. These apostles had clearly intended to cause a fight from the very beginning. Kai questions if their goal is to incapacitate them to secure a win, noting their overconfidence in attacking unknown enemies. However, a member of the Moonlight Apostles interrupts, demanding that Kai and his partners surrender peacefully. Then, the apostle insults Rei, questioning the worth of a colorless mage, and mocks Kai's recent rise to kingship. Kai and Kurahashi meet the verbal assault with nothing but silence. One of the Moonlight Apostles' members prepares an attack aimed directly at Kai. Simultaneously, his partner charges blindly at Kurahashi. Losing his temper, Kai shouts for them to shut up and launches a brutal counterattack, leaving the attackers broken on the ground. He strikes with a ferocity that matches the redhead's intensity. Quietly settles. Walking toward the fallen attackers, Kurahashi pulls a strange face to warn them, and making a bizarre face warns them never to mock the Kurosaki Rei again. Kai follows suit, making it clear that any further disrespect will be met with even greater fury. Watching the aftermath, Hina Reina is impressed by the duo's victory over the apostles. Shina laughs at the unexpected turn of events. Azuma cheers for the sacred staff apostles. Kusei notes to the Blue King that Kai and Kurahashi truly possess incredible abilities. Then Shina snaps her fingers. Shina grants MVP points to the participants, much to the confusion of the fighters. She laughs, explaining that her little gift is purely for her own personal entertainment. Meanwhile, Rei and Oikawa are traversing the tournament map. Running across the tournament map, Oikawa is suddenly startled by a voice calling out to him. Both of them freeze in horror as the ground right before them begins to collapse. Oikawa quickly thanks Rei for the save. Ri asks if he is alright and wonders if Shion is what's troubling him, but the subject is quickly dismissed by Oikawa as a personal matter. However, as they look up, the blonde mage sees something approaching from above. Terror grips him as massive rocks hurtle toward their position. Desperate, Oikawa activates his barrier ability to block the incoming strike. Another attack hurtles toward Oikawa, but he realizes the first strike was nothing more than a decoy. Ri draws his sword, slicing through the incoming magic to dissipate the threat instantly. After confirming Oikawa is safe, Rei is interrupted by a mocking laugh. The twin brothers appear, laughing at the idea that they were stopped by members of the Sacred Staff Apostles. One of them notes that if they had lost this easily, Xion would be disappointed. Looking at the teenagers, Rei asks if children are actually participating in this tournament. Oikawa sighs, noting that the brothers arrived much sooner than expected. These children are the Hidaka brothers, prodigies who earned mage licenses through overwhelming power when fighting in pairs, making them ranks mages. Ri can barely believe that children are capable of such a high rank, but in a paired tournament, they are the ultimate enemies. Watching from afar, spectators note the intensity of the clash between the Dawn Apostles and the Sacred Staff Apostles. It is shaping up to be a very interesting match. The crowd cheers for Sora and Riku to show their strength. Meanwhile, Rei is analyzing the twin brothers, the youngest rank S mages. He knows from his past life that fighting them together is a hopeless death sentence. Fortunately, he has Oikawa, a master of barriers, by his side. They must hold their defense until an opening appears, but these rank S prodigies have blocked their path to the tower immediately. Reflecting on the Yellow King, Oikawa closes his eyes with resolve, vowing that he will not lose this tournament and will guide Rei through the chaos ahead.
Ri notices Oikawa acting with uncharacteristic urgency, but the moment is cut short when the Hidaka brothers declare their intent to attack.
One brother releases a powerful ability, leading Oikawa to suspect they are using earth magic to obscure their vision, though he believes the dust won't hide them from the enemy for long. However, the second brother immediately counters with Sora. One of the brothers mocks the apostles of the Sacred Staff's speed before a sudden surge of frost traps them both in ice. Sora warns Oikawa that being frozen will prevent him from using his barriers, leaving them completely helpless. Seeing his brother's command to freeze them, Riku watches as Rei grabs his sword and channels flames into the blade, vowing not to let them fall. With a powerful strike, he shatters the ice. Shocked by the escape, Sora is stunned, but Riku quickly orders his brother to step back for a second round. The combatants refuse to back down, as Hina Reina notes how the race is heating up. Oikawa, however, is growing anxious, fearing that the twins' hit-and-run tactics will allow other teams to reach the tower first. Knowing the danger, Oikawa points out to Rei that the twins possess complementary mana colors. Riku wields red mana, granting him massive attack power at the cost of control, while Sora utilizes blue mana. While Sora's blue mana offers superior control, it lacks the raw firepower of his brother's red energy. Ri recalls that Sora specifically uses ice magic, a power with incredible range but dangerously low strength. Oikawa warns Rei to dodge the red mana strikes, for the twins will likely synchronize their attacks with blue mana next. Even Shayna, watching the chaos, notes how the twins are managing the situation calmly, although she emphasizes that these brothers are far from simple. Sora asks his brother if they should use their special move, and Riku agrees, extending a fist toward his twin. Oikawa watches in shock as Rei realizes the truth. Their manas are merging. The Hidaka brothers have activated mana connection. The twins charge, aiming straight for Oikawa, thinking he's read the pattern. Oikawa raises a barrier to block a red ability, expecting a blue follow-up, but he was wrong. Riku unleashes a raw red ability that smashes through the defense, hitting Oikawa directly. The Yellow King realizes that by trying to predict mana colors, their reactions are too slow. Because of that delay, they've lost their path to victory against these impressive brothers. Rei rushes to Oikawa, checking on him, while the blonde mage claims he will lead, but Oikawa hesitates, questioning their next move. Thinking it's best to flee toward the tower, Oikawa is suddenly interrupted by a loud shout. Ri's sudden outburst leaves the brothers confused, and Ri demands to know if Oikawa actually wants to win this tournament. When the mage confirms his intent, Rei tells him he must trust him as well. Ri admits that while Oikawa is reliable, he shouldn't carry the burden alone. They must fight this as a team. The blonde mage stares at him. Oikawa is stunned by the words, realizing how much he has been carrying on his own. He slaps himself, acknowledging his arrogance for failing to see Rei as a true partner rather than just someone to protect. Apologizing for his pride, the blonde mage officially asks Rei to join forces, marking a true turning point for their partnership. Oikawa quickly regains his spirit, laughing as he promises Rei he will give it everything he has. As the counterattack begins, observers note the overwhelming pressure from the Hidaka brothers' magic. Watching from afar, Itsuki decides that pairing the two together was the correct choice after all. Meanwhile, Shina finds it boring to witness a team so distracted by their own objectives. Determined, Oikawa tells the twins that their time is up. With his composure restored, he is certain that working with Rei will lead them to victory. He urges Rei to execute their plan, and the colorless porter begins preparing his blue ability. Ri activates his ice needle, ready to strike back. The twins realize that even a change in strategy won't matter if Rei tries to attack from a distance, making any desperate long-range attempt completely useless. Ray feels a flicker of doubt, worrying that his solo strength might not be enough to turn the tide, but the brothers only grin, claiming that things are finally getting interesting.
Determined, Ray shouts his reliance on Oikawa and prepares to
and charges headlong at the twins while shielded by Oikawa's barrier. The move leaves Hinarena stunned, watching in confusion as the boys' teammates call the charge a solo, suicidal mistake. Sheena watches the charge, assuming the twins can easily pierce through Oikawa's defensive mana. That the upcoming strike is nothing more than a simple blow, but the twins, Sora and Riku, prepare a devastating red mana strike to crush Ray head-on. In the audience, Azuma watches as the brothers prepare a massive attack designed to shatter any barrier in their path. Sora laughs, confident that their raw power will overcome defenses like this, but Oikawa isn't so sure, noting that success depends entirely on the barrier's structure. With determination, Oikawa activates his quintuple barrier to reinforce Ri's protection. Ri realizes that red abilities are usually direct and predictable. Because of that, they can simply focus their defense on the direction of the incoming strikes. Oikawa's quintuple barrier holds firm, completely neutralizing the twins' magic. The brothers can't believe their combined strength was so easily blocked, and as they look behind them, they realize they've been cornered by Ray's initial maneuver. Realizing they were herded like cattle, the twins panic. Seeing the opening, Oikawa urges Ray to go all out, and the porter moves with blinding speed, knocking both brothers unconscious. Ri watches them fall and takes a long, heavy breath. The crowd erupts in cheers as Hinarena announces the Sacred Staff duo as the winners. Sheena awards them 2 MVP points each, though she admits that the Sacred Staff duo truly outplayed them. In the aftermath, Oikawa reflects on the importance of simplicity over complex strategy, realizing how much he has grown through this fight. Ultimately, he feels a profound sense of gratitude toward Ray. Hojo Itsuki, the Blue King, notes that they managed to turn the tide and deliver a truly impressive performance. However, Itsuki warns that even this won't be enough to face Shion, while observing that Oikawa has finally started to mature. Rii urges him to move on, but Oikawa stops the proceedings, needing to clear the air. He apologizes for his previous behavior, admitting he was lost in his own worries. Glancing at the distant recording drone, Oikawa decides to share a truth he once kept hidden from everyone. He thanks Ray for the realization that prompted this confession. Looking Ray in the eye, he reveals that the legendary Yellow King, Kirimiya Chaos, is actually his father. It's a revelation that leaves Ray stunned. Oikawa confesses that being abandoned by the Yellow King was a weight he had carried in silence. He admits that although Ray might have heard about his expulsion from the Moonlight Apostles, the truth of his father's abandonment is far more painful. Oikawa wants to use this tournament to prove he is more than just his father's shadow. His legacy was built entirely on his father's name, but he seeks a path of his own. Ri wonders what's weighing on him, but Oikawa only focuses on one thing, his rivalry with Shion, whom he has never once defeated. A heavy presence fills the air. Aya wonders if even she could defeat him. The man. The previous year, Yuri promises to explain everything. Recalling the past, Aya realizes Shion is a terrifying force, especially when he tells Watanabe to stay out of his way. Watanabe finds Shion's recent aggression unbelievable, but he isn't about to back down without a fight. Instead, he simply laughs and tells Shion to go easy on him. As the crowd settles, Aya suspects Shion will fight entirely alone while his partner remains at ease. Even Itsuki questions the fairness of such a mismatch, but the Yellow King dismisses the concern, caring only for results. To him, Shion requires no half-baked support, a fact that Watanabe knows all too well. Ready for the onslaught, Yuri urges Aya to stay focused and concentrate on the match as Shion begins to channel his power. Suddenly, yellow energy manifests across the battlefield as Shion activates his Evil Mind ability, leading Aya to fear he is making his first move. Yuri shouts for Aya to stay focused. Unmoved by the tension, Shion releases his ability in a massive explosion, leaving nothing but settling dust. As the smoke clears, Aya and Yuri emerge unharmed but shaken, relieved to have escaped the blast by mere inches. Even the apostles of the Sacred Staff saw the attack coming, the danger clearly evident. Yuri realizes Shion's mind magic turns mana into explosive mines, and a direct hit would mean certain death. Thankfully, she's seen this deadly technique once before. Watanabe acknowledges her experience, but he fears that even a perfect counter strategy might not be enough to— But Shion isn't finished. He is just getting started, whose overwhelming power begins to spread across the entire battlefield, triggering another series of devastating explosions. Explosions rock the ground, throwing Aya and Yuri backward. As the smoke clears, Yuri realizes Shion is rapidly increasing the number of mines. She wonders if he was actually holding back last year. She wonders if he had been holding back mockingly asks if Yuri has a counterattack, certain it won't matter since she is nowhere near his level. Yuri screams for Aya to retreat, seeing their situation worsen by the second, but Aya refuses to stand down, gritting her teeth against the chaos. If she gives up now, nothing will ever change. She thinks full results of her training yet. In that moment, Aya remembers Yuri's question about wanting to become stronger. Remembers Yuri asking if she wanted to become stronger, and the realization from the battle on the island fuels her resolve. Aya realizes she still relies too much on the Kurosaki Ray and needs her own strength, a request that leaves Yuri surprised. But the elder mage soon smiles, understanding the drive for growth. Motivated by this bond, both women commit to rigorous training. Aya pushes her limits, focusing intensely on her mana control, to sharpen every single one of her abilities. Yuri supports her, noting that they haven't even truly tested her full potential yet. As Aya releases her power, Yuri realizes that Aya has truly changed since their first meeting, refusing to retreat when once she would have. Watching from the sidelines, Sheena laughs, noting how much courage the two girls have found. Xian acknowledges Aya's impressive mana capacity, but his tone remains chillingly certain. He tells her plainly not to spend even a single second imagining a victory against him. Aya can only reflect on those heavy words. Aya knows she is no match for Xion, but she has trained relentlessly to prepare for this very moment. Watanabe watches from the sidelines, unable to believe the display unfolding. Aya is channeling an unprecedented amount of mana, crafting a massive fireball. The scale of the ability is absurdly insane, pushing the limits of what anyone thought possible. Aya pours every drop of her massive mana reserves into the spell, unleashing a barrage of meteor flames. Aya activates her high-level magic, and
Watanabe prepares his barrier, certain that even Xion won't be able to withstand
such a devastating blow, but Xion simply extends an arm and dissipates the flames as if they were nothing, leaving the onlookers stunned. Cold sweat breaks on Yuri's brow. She watches Xion closely, wondering if he truly neutralized that power without even trying. The crowd erupts in chaos, unable to comprehend how Xion neutralized Aya's supreme flame magic. Sheena watches the display, noting that it wasn't just neutralized, but effectively extinguished. She's never seen such magic before and wonders what the boy is capable of, exactly what he did. Yuri searches for an explanation, realizing Xion didn't use explosions or any previous technique to cancel the attack. Even Watanabe is left stunned, having never witnessed this terrifying power in person. Yuri's confusion mirrors the audience's, while Aya realizes that even her strongest magic was nothing to Xion. He grants her credit for forcing him to act, but then he warns that no matter how hard she struggles, the outcome will never change.
No matter how hard she fights, the result is already decided.
Aya freezes in terror as Xion's power looms over her, and then he activates his evil mind ability. Then the world erupts as Xion's magic detonates at point-blank range, causing Aya to feel a sudden agonizing burst of pain. The blast has left her legs severely injured, leaving her crumpled on the ground. Watching from above, Sheena wonders if the girl's valiant struggle has finally reached its end. But Xion is unmoved, dismissing Aya as nothing more than a stone by the roadside in his rigid hierarchy. Yuri rushes to her partner's side, fearing that she won't be able to continue this fight, but she is stunned by the sheer willpower Aya is still showing become stronger. Despite her pain, Aya releases her power, declaring she can still fight. Sheena is so startled by her grit that she quickly shifts from doubt to admiration for the girl's spirit, but Xion is just preparing to strike, having already issued his warning. However, the duel is suddenly interrupted by a sudden violent attack. The force of the impact slams into the rocks near the girls, sending them flying. Watanabe apologizes to Xion for the interruption, but tells him he is taking too long to finish the fight. Aya is knocked into a stream and surfaces coughing while Yuri uses mana conversion to cling to the rocks. Watanabe observes that Aya is physically incapable of continuing the fight, and though he admits she fought well, notes she simply overdid it. Despite her defeat, Aya smiles, certain that she will emerge much stronger through this struggle. Consequently, Sheena awards MVP points to Aya and Xion for their intense clash. It's clear that the Blue King, Hojo Itsuki, has trained some incredibly talented students. Xion calls out to Watanabe, but the man turns away, insisting they must move before others surpass them. Although Xion agrees to proceed, taking a deep breath, Xion agrees to the retreat, yet remains dead set on being the one to conquer the grand festival. He remains silent, observing the ambition burning within Xion. Xion believes the identity of the opponent is irrelevant, but Hina Reina announces that the grand festival is finally entering its intermediate phase. Kurahashi questions if they'll truly be forced to traverse such a deadly place. She has prepared a twisted little surprise for this next area, wondering aloud if anyone will actually make it through. Deep within the map, Kai and Kurahashi stare in shock at the bizarre, explosive landscape they've been forced into. Kai tells the complaining redhead that no amount of worrying will change their fate. They have no choice but to move forward. As they try to advance, a massive explosion erupts, sending the redhead reeling back in terror. She screams that the kings of the primary colors must be insane to create such a place, but Kai simply offers a cold solution. He'll use her as bait to move forward. Kurahashi explodes in rage, demanding to know if he intends to treat her as a mere shield, prompting a heated shouting match between the two. Kai's temper finally snaps as he orders her to shut up, interrupting the chaos. Nearby, members of the Apostles of the Sacred Staff pass by, watching the two duelists act like complete idiots. Yashiro tells them to focus on their own survival instead, while Hina Reina watches the distant explosions, fearing a mass elimination is underway. And then, Shion activates his evil minds in sequence, using the ability's explosions to neutralize the volcanic bombs raining down on the area. Hina Reina observes that Shion and Watanabe have bypassed the destruction so easily, making them likely to reach the tower first. To the tower, however, Shion is surprised because Oikawa and Rei are also advancing through the volcanic bomb zone without any trouble. Oikawa laughs, thinking they are almost through. Ri agrees it helps to be by his side, while Itsuki notes that if they keep this up, they'll escape the zone soon. Oikawa, the Yellow King, agrees, noting that things are finally getting interesting. Indeed, the tension is rising. Then Oikawa gasps in surprise as the tournament's final tower finally comes into view right before his eyes. But the peace is short-lived as Rei and Oikawa feel an overwhelming pressure from Shion, who is using his evil mind abilities to suppress them. Oikawa manages to block the explosions with a barrier, but it's clearly the limit of his strength. The blonde mage stares up, determined, and announces that he has been waiting for this rematch. He knew they would meet again eventually, though he never expected it to happen here, having said that he intends to finally reach his target. Oikawa declares he is here to settle the promise they made a year ago after his defeat, leaving Shion momentarily surprised. A heavy silence follows. Then Shion begins to laugh non-stop, leaving Oikawa completely confused by his sudden and mocking behavior. Shion mocks the Yellow King, dismissing his old rivalry as nothing more than a nonsense promise that holds no weight. To Shion, Oikawa no longer deserves even a moment of his time. Shion intends to prove his dominance in this tournament and ultimately succeed the Yellow King. Oikawa realizes that anything else is nothing more than a trivial distraction. Shion's confidence is absolute. Oikawa recalls how they once swore to grow stronger together, competing side by side through every trial. But Shion's momentum grew so fast that he began to distance himself, and the gap between them only widened. Shion climbed so high that Oikawa felt his own courage failing, making their shared training feel utterly useless. Overwhelmed by the distance, froze. Unable to watch Shion ascend alone, Oikawa stepped back, leaving him to climb the mountain of power without a companion. Duel. Only to crush him and leave the Apostles of the Moonlight behind forever. Shion dismisses Oikawa's very presence, claiming the man can't even touch his shadow. He has no patience left for a rivalry that was resolved long ago. Oikawa refuses to back down, insisting that he and Shion are the ones who will ultimately win the grand tournament. If Shion is truly disappointed, then Oikawa will just have to force him to watch him succeed once again. Watching from the sidelines, Rei realizes that the tension between these two is truly that of legendary rivals. Meanwhile, Watanabe laughs at Oikawa's newfound resolve. He turns to Rei with a sudden request, asking if he can let Oikawa handle this confrontation first. Though startled by the request, Rei agrees, and Oikawa clarifies that he isn't being reckless this time, but has a plan. Having fought Shion countless times, Oikawa claims he knows every move. Now, he reveals his true strategy. The key to victory lies in Rei's skill drain. The Yellow King reveals his gambit. He will rely on Rei's unique skill drain to secure the win. Ri recoils, shouting a warning that using such a power on a human is incredibly dangerous. Oikawa warns that Shion cannot be defeated if they continue to hold back. He suggests Rei view his ability not as theft, but as a temporary seal to restrain him. He laughs, expressing total trust that Rei will use this stolen power for the right reasons. Startled by the trust, Rei nods and tries to steady his racing heart. Sheena watches intently, wondering if this battle will finally reveal the truth behind Shion's annihilation magic. Shion's eyes lock onto Oikawa before he activates his evil mind ability, triggering a devastating bombardment across the entire battlefield. Watanabe only laughs, seeing that Shion has no intention of wasting time, but Oikawa stands firm within his protective barrier. Refusing to yield, he declares that every waking moment has been spent perfecting a skill specifically to counter Shion's evil mind. Rii watches in shock as Oikawa's massive barrier absorbs the bombardment, remaining completely unscratched by the explosions. Shion's voice drifts through the smoke, noting that Oikawa's durable mana pillars are the only thing worth acknowledging here. The Dark Mage makes it clear that hiding behind a shield will never be enough to secure a victory. Oikawa sees a massive pillar crashing towards Shion and thinks he finally has the perfect opening to land a blow, but Shion simply turns his arm toward the massive structure. With a mere gesture, dissipates the object instantly, leaving Oikawa staring in utter disbelief. Shion's dismissal is deafening as he speaks. Shion's warning was a final dismissal, insisting that Oikawa would never touch him, but Rei suddenly appears out of nowhere, telling Shion not to be foolish. In an instant, Rei activates his and charges straight at the god, leaving Shion genuinely concerned by the sudden ambush. Suddenly, Watanabe emerges from the shadows. Then he launches his attack. Rii dodges at the last second and quickly retreats.
Watanabe is looming close.
Surprised that Rei could dodge from such a distance, though he admits he should have expected nothing less from someone destined for the title of a king. As Rei observes the chaos, he realizes that Shion's new magic is even more unpredictable than before. Combined with Watanabe's sharper strikes, the dual assault makes coordinating a defense nearly impossible. They are even using his own technique as bait to trap him. He knows they won't let him escape so easily. Watching the climax of the struggle, Oikawa Hikaru mutters that it is about time. Suddenly, Cheyenne unleashes an overwhelming burst of power that makes the very foundations of the world tremble. The tremors escalate into a violent collapse, swallowing the battlefield in chaos. Oikawa screams for Rei to brace for the inevitable fall, hoping this might force a reset to give them a fighting chance, but Shion remains unmoved, mocking the very idea of hope. No matter the struggle, he claims Oikawa will never reach his level. To Shion, their desperate efforts are ultimately useless. Shion's arrogance is absolute as he reminds them they are simply on different levels.
Rei and Oikawa plunge into the abyss, victims of a trap set by Oikawa Hikaru, the S-rank Yellow King, to increase the tournament's difficulty for the mages.
The descent leaves the battlefield in silence as the fight is effectively postponed for now. The darkness swallows them whole. Watching from above, Hina Reina fears the falling pairs might never return from the depths of the pits. Sheena expresses her frustration, noting that the monitors are now useless because of this old man's unnecessary traps. Meanwhile, tension boils on the surface as Shion turns his cold gaze toward his own team. He reminds Watanabe that he never asked for his interference. Shion's voice turns lethal, warning that he will show no mercy if Watanabe interferes again, even as an ally. Watanabe argues that even an old man can have feelings, but more importantly, Shion has abandoned everyone they once stood beside. He's using magic no one has ever witnessed before, and lately he seems like a completely different person though. Shion dismisses the claim as ridiculous. Silence hangs heavy in the dim light. Meanwhile, deep within the side tunnels, Rei and Oikawa Hikaru search for a way back to the surface after their sudden fall. Oikawa Hikaru remains silent, though he knows he didn't underestimate Shion's potential. He even prepared a strategy for this exact growth. But despite his calculations, the gap between them only seems to be widening. An uneasy feeling begins to settle over Oikawa Hikaru as he turns to Rei and asks why they don't just give up the competition right now. Oikawa claims the tournament is just a goodwill match, meaning there is no need to risk injury by forcing a confrontation with other mages. But he argues that a mage's real enemies are the dungeons, not the people they face in a practice match. Rii takes a deep breath and confronts him, asking why Oikawa is lying to his face. Oikawa looks slightly embarrassed, and Rii apologizes for the suspicion, hoping he's just overthinking. Still, he has to know if Oikawa is truly giving up deep down. Oikawa insists he is only making a rational suggestion for their own good, but Rei sees through the mask, noticing that Oikawa is actually in significant pain. Rii's gaze lingers, waiting. Rii realizes there is a reason Oikawa's behavior feels so unsettlingly familiar. Observing the blonde man, Rei sees a reflection of his own past self in that desperate discomfort. Oikawa's mask finally shatters. The Yellow King lets out a hollow laugh, admitting the rational suggestion was just a facade. The truth is, he simply doesn't want to fight. His year of preparation meant nothing against Cheyenne's overwhelming power. The gap has only widened, and even his father's silence suggests this failure was inevitable. To Oikawa, it's foolish to challenge an opponent when the outcome is already certain. You will lose, but Rei isn't buying it. He calls out Oikawa's final lie, cutting straight through the defense. Rii realizes the true terror. Oikawa isn't afraid of the battle, but of discovering that every single effort he has made has been in vain. Caught and exposed, the blonde becomes frantic, shouting. Ri stares at Oikawa, seeing the shadow of the man he used to be, a person paralyzed by the crushing weight of reality. And that is exactly why Rei knows the truth, even if Oikawa can't hear it yet. He declares that this moment is not the limit of Oikawa's potential, and though it catches the mage off guard, Rei promises that none of his struggle has been in vain. Oikawa asks how Rei can be so sure when defeat is still a possibility. Ri doesn't deny the risk, but he insists that victory isn't about logic. They might lose and suffer more than they are now, but they aren't the type to just give up. Ri laughs, telling him he actually knows nothing about him and that this is all just a selfish hope. Despite his words, Rei's belief that Oikawa can win is unmistakable. Surprised by this sudden surge of confidence, a small smile breaks through Oikawa's frustration, admitting that Rei actually managed to convince him, promising that if they fall, they will lose together. Oikawa refuses to give up and thanks Rei for the reassurance. With their bond rekindled, both of them prepare to move. Rie and Oikawa sprint through the dark tunnels, determined to reach their allies before it's too late. They find Yuri and Aya, but Yuri immediately suggests taking charge. She prepares to use her mana conversion to use a massive hammer with a powerful swing. She launches Rei and Oikawa toward the summit. However, as they step onto the platform, Aya calls out a warning. She has noticed something unusual about Shion's magic, and the revelation leaves them both questioning everything. Rei and Oikawa realize Aya is right, noting the same pattern in Shion's previous combat style. Rei thanks Aya for the crucial intel, while Aya laughs, glad to be of help. With the plan set, everyone prepares for the launch, as Aya offers a final word of encouragement. With the plan finalized, everyone prepares for the launch. Yuri launches the pair into the sky, her expression showing to them. They arrive at the top of the tower, where Oikawa tells Rei that the final stretch has finally begun. With the tower looming ahead, Rei and Oikawa sprint toward their goal, while Hina Reina notices two members of the Apostles of the Sacred Staff have surfaced.
These powerful warriors are...
It is clear they are heading straight for the tower, anticipating the chaos of the final phase and hoping for a battle that settles everything once and for all. Oikawa notes the tension is palpable, but he realizes few other pairs are even in sight. Most were likely eliminated in the volcanic zone though. Shion and his partner might have bypassed them. Rei wonders if simply grabbing the tower key is enough to end the match. They still have a chance. Oikawa disagrees with Watanabe being the fastest member of the Apostles of the Moon. Shion's team securing the key would mean instant defeat. Ri knows it will be disastrous if they arrive at the tower too late. But as they approach, Oikawa points toward the left side of the tower, suggesting a possible entrance. They quickly step inside and are immediately met by a grim sight of defeated monsters, looking as though the Blue King himself placed them there as obstacles. The heavy sounds of combat echo from the top floor, confirming Oikawa's fears that Shion is already far ahead. Determined to close the gap, the pair sprints upward, hoping that the monsters on the top floor might provide enough of a delay for a miracle. Meanwhile, at the summit, a monster is suddenly struck by the sheer malevolent force of Shion's growing darkness. Even the monsters on the upper floor have become too weak to pose a challenge.
Watanabe watches Shion effortlessly repel them, confirming the boy's terrifying growth.
Yet, a chilling sensation tugs at his gut, a feeling that Shion is hiding something dark. He brushes the doubt aside, assuming the grand tournament will settle everything soon. Suddenly, a drone flies toward Shion's vicinity. Watanabe calls out, asking why he isn't just grabbing the key and ending this. As Hina Reina cheers for the Apostles of Moonlight's victory, Sheena grows irritated by the lack of a real fight. But the boredom vanishes when she notices something deeply unsettling. The broadcast suddenly cuts to static. Meanwhile, inside the tower, Watanabe's confusion turns to immediate tension as he confronts the source of the chaos. Tower Watanabe demands an explanation for why Shion destroyed the transmission drone. Caught completely off guard, Watanabe can only recoil in shock as his partner strikes. Shion stares him down, claiming he already knew this would happen. He warns that sharp instincts are a liability, and that ignorance is often the only way to survive a long life. Too late for lessons at that moment. Oikawa arrives only to witness the horror of what Shion has become, and as Watanabe collapses to the floor in agony. Oikawa arrives in a fury, demanding to know what Shion is doing, and tired of waiting for both him and the Black King. Ri's eyes fix on Shion's hand, noticing a sickening change. It's just like the monstrous transformation Kai once underwent. Nearby, the destroyed broadcast drones ensure this nightmare remains hidden from the world. Shocked by the sight, Oikawa demands to know Shion's true nature. He spreads his arms and screams that the human game is over and he will make them both disappear, right now. With a bizarre smile, the entity claims it will eliminate everyone close to Shion, and the Black King to reign as the king of humans. Devastated, Oikawa demands the truth one last time, only for the creature to acknowledge that those close to Shion always notice the change first. The entity smiles cruelly, pointing out that while Shion's body remains, his soul is gone. Ri asks for clarification, but the truth is far more horrific than a simple possession. The creature reveals it used Shion as a high-quality vessel, devouring his soul to take control of his life. Consequently, the human Shion Hiragi has effectively ceased to exist. Oikawa stands paralyzed by the news, while Rei wonders if this monster is acting just like Shion's brother once did. Ri realizes the monster might be using Shion's own memories to mimic him. The creature laughs, claiming it possesses all of Shion's memories, but finds acting human. As trivial as the empty promises Oikawa once made to him, it mocks the blonde man's obsession, with the entity taunting him for finally fighting his rival, only to realize the man is now nothing more than an empty shell. Rei warns Oikawa against acting rashly, but he is too late. Oikawa loses his temper, swearing vengeance against the monster that destroyed his friend. Taking a deep breath, Oikawa questions if this is the legendary power of friendship humans cherish, but his voice turns deathly serious. He begins to release a monstrous power, wondering how long Oikawa's fury can sustain him as the air begins to tremble with his escalating mana. Oikawa's fury lingers as memories of Shion flood back, specifically conversations about the legendary Yellow King. Shion once dreamed of succeeding the Yellow King, driven by a desperate need to finally be seen by his father. The idea of being ignored left Oikawa stunned. Shion had urged him to become so strong that even a father couldn't turn a blind eye, and he wanted to do it alongside Oikawa. He had been so confident in their shared future. But Shion is gone, leaving only a hollowed shell that Oikawa is determined to destroy. The entity inhabiting Shion's body begins to laugh hysterically, mocking the strange faces humans make before being slaughtered. It even sneers while pulling at its own skin, claiming Shion's expression was wonderful before the end. Enraged by the desecration of his friend, Oikawa screams for the monster to shut up. He releases his power in a desperate surge. Launching his rigid pillar ability at the monster, he strikes with everything he has, but the creature dances through the onslaught with terrifying ease. As a massive pillar closes in, the creature simply mocks Oikawa's warning, completely dispelling the blonde's powerful ability, rendering his magic absolutely useless. Realizing brute force is failing, Oikawa desperately considers turning to annihilation magic. The entity claims its banishment bite can nullify any power, laughing that no one can even leave a scratch on its host's body. Oikawa's composure finally cracks, a rare sight for the powerful mage.
Watching him, Rei realizes
that he has never seen Oikawa show such vulnerability before. This isn't the man who promised to fight together. Determined to analyze the field, Rei vows he won't let Oikawa face this nightmare alone. The creature laughs, unleashing its power to trigger its evil mind ability, to trigger massive explosions across the area. Oikawa desperately throws up a barrier, trying to shield them from the blasts. The monster seems genuinely surprised by this sudden surge of human resilience, remarking that the mage is tougher than expected. The creature laughs, turning this into a sadistic test of endurance by launching a relentless barrage of. Oikawa can't keep up with the absurd numbers, the sheer volume of attacks overwhelming his defenses. The resulting explosions violently throw him backward, leaving him struggling just to stay alive. The monster mocks him, claiming he'll never avenge his rival at this rate. Fueled by indignation, Oikawa refuses to yield, but the creature dismisses his predictable counterattack as a futile gesture. Ri realizes there is a different way to win, and he charges forward, shouting for Oikawa to keep the pressure on. Leaping high into the air, Rei readies his own power. He ignites his abyss flame, a dark and devastating force. The monster watches in shock. The monster scoffs at the Black King's aerial assault, preparing its evil mind to crush the vulnerable Rei like an easy target. But Ri laughs, directly challenging the monster's confidence. Suddenly, Oikawa's rigid pillars erupt from the ground, and Rei, advantaged by stepping on one to propel himself forward. He maneuvers through the air with incredible speed, realizing that the creature's annihilation magic requires physical contact to function. This means he just needs to stay mobile and keep his distance from its palms. To win, he must keep his distance and stay mobile. As Rei attempts to strike from behind, but the creature spins around, shouting that Rei shouldn't underestimate it before grabbing him by the arm. Stunned by the sudden reaction, shocked that the beast reacted so quickly from that angle, the entity mocks how close Rei got, but Rei simply smiles, telling the monster, "Not yet." Panic finally sets in for the creature as it senses a terrifying power emerging. Therefore, Rei acts. Ri activates skill drain, successfully stealing the entity's evil mind. Ri declares it is over, mocking the beast for losing its only means of attack. The creature merely laughs, refusing to accept that this is the end. Ri watches in horror as the monster undergoes a terrifying transformation, revealing its true original body.
The real show is about to begin.
Meanwhile, within his seal, Kronos observes the change with amusement, noting that humans can be unexpectedly ingenious. However, the god laughs, eager to finally settle an old debt. Ri is about to face the true power of his assassin, and the sight leaves him horrified. He realizes he isn't just looking at a monster, but something entirely new. The creature is level 105, an anomaly that never existed in Rei's previous life. With a manic laugh, the beast unleashes an even deeper surge of darkness. Back at the venue, Sheena watches the transmission, desperate to know what is happening at the tournament location. As the creature sheds Shion's clothes, it lashes out with a devastating force. Oikawa tries to defend himself, but the sheer magnitude of the power at the top of the tower, the explosion rocks the world, prompting Oikawa Hikaru to declare that the situation is extraordinary and demands immediate action. The Yellow King agrees, sensing the extraordinary nature of the chaos. Nodding, uses his ability to conjure a bird to reach the chaos. The kings of the primary colors prepare to join the fray, moving toward the tournament location as the bird takes flight. Meanwhile, back at the tower, Abyss Veil looms over the fallen Rei and Oikawa Hikaru, mocking their weakness. He declares his newfound pure power renders his previous abilities obsolete, leaving these insignificant humans with no hope of survival. To him, they are nothing more than insects to be crushed. But Oikawa Hikaru refuses to go down without a fight, sharing a silent, determined nod with Rei. Determined, Oikawa Hikaru summons his rigid pillar ability toward Abyss Veil, who merely laughs at such a predictable move. However, Oikawa Hikaru isn't finished. This was only the beginning of his gambit, but the monster shifts its form, transforming Oikawa's pillars into lethal stakes. The spikes change. The creature laughs, confident that the Yellow King has forgotten its own capabilities. As Abyss Veil prepares a banishment bite, Rei lunges forward, determined to steal the ability for himself. Ri-Eye activates skill drain, but the technique fails to take hold. He triggers his skill, only to find himself staring in shock at the face of the monster. Staring directly at the creature, Rei wonders why his power failed him. Abyss Veil readies a devastating strike, and Oikawa realizes they are in mortal danger, summoning a quintuple barrier to protect Rei. However, the force is too immense, shattering the defense and throwing Rei violently into Oikawa. Abyss Veil mocks Rei, noting that his ability is useless against its current misty form. Ri wonders if this ethereal layer is just like the Dullahan, preventing any direct contact with the core. The creature laughs, claiming the Black King has run out of moves and its victory is guaranteed. Fearing the worst, Rei asks if the monster's objective is to wipe them out before attacking the world. The monster's tone turns chillingly serious as it reveals its true goal, to steal the throne of a king using Hiragi Shion's body. And while Rei and Oikawa stare in horror, the creature promises to devour them next, using their bodies as mere vessels. It claims Shion is the only one worthy of being the Yellow King, and it wants them to watch the spectacle as the human world threatens to collapse under a monster wielding a king's absolute authority, potentially sabotaging every dungeon in existence. Refusing to stand by, Oikawa vows that he will never allow a monster to ascend to such power. Oikawa becomes dead serious, vowing to stop the monster no matter what the cost. Rei is surprised by the absolute determination in the king's eyes. Together, they brace for a fight that seems entirely impossible. Abyss Veil mocks them. The monster unleashes a terrifying burst of power, an aura so immense that it forces the two warriors to feel a weight unlike anything before. Ri realizes that to deal damage, he must find a way to bypass that annihilation magic. He listens as Oikawa shouts that the ability Rei stole from Shion is their only hope. By using that stolen power, the Yellow King believes they still have a chance to win, but the monster simply laughs in derision. Abyss Veil asks if they are delusional, explaining that his banishing bite nullifies all magic. He wonders if the human concept of bonds can actually overcome such a power. While Rei struggles to stay calm, the Abyss Veil views them as nothing more than inferior life forms. Even as Oikawa whispers a secret plan that only the two of them can hear, the creature believes it can read their every thought. Yet it's calculating the danger of their explosions. Confident in its lightning-fast reflexes, the monster readies a strike to end them once and for all. As Oikawa commands Rei to get ready, the monster prepares to turn them into ash. A massive explosion erupts from the Abyss Veil's assault, and violent. The creature freezes, forced to look up as Rei charges toward it with everything he has. In this desperate moment, Rei's mind turns to Shion. Rei unleashes his stolen ability, launching several concentrated bursts of evil minds. But Abyss Veil simply laughs, believing the attack is useless against it. The monster attempts to nullify the assault, confident in its absolute power. However, the technique fails to dissipate, prompting a sudden confusion from the beast as Oikawa seizes this moment and launches his own power, reaching directly toward the face of the terrifying veil. It looms. The creature is visibly surprised to find the ability remains intact. Oikawa shouts that if the monster can invalidate contact-based skills, its attacks shouldn't be able to bypass a solid barrier. Refusing to let this monster destroy Shion's ability, Oikawa releases his magic, allowing the evil minds to surround the Veil of the Abyss, triggering a chain of explosions. The creature begins to feel the first stirrings of genuine nervousness. Ibis Veil screams, unleashing a monstrous power that leaves Rei and Oikawa in total shock. The sheer immensity of the power is staggering. The destruction looms over the Tower of Challenge, visible even from a vast distance away. In the distance, Sheena worries about the speed of the Blue King's messenger. He tries to reassure her, but his composure shatters when he spots the nightmare unfolding. A terrifying evil power is leaking from the tower, signaling certain annihilation for anyone in its path. The Veil of the Abyss has made its intent clear. Total destruction is coming. Rei feels a level of dense, evil mana he has never encountered before. Amidst the dread, Oikawa calls out to him. Oikawa thanks Rei, leaving the porter confused by the sudden gratitude, looking toward the veil. The blonde man confesses that without Rei's words, he would have fled this battle long ago. He admits he has spent his whole life running from people, from his father, and even from the truth. He has been running from himself, unable to face the reality of his own heart. Determined to make a final stand, Oikawa asks Rei to channel every drop of his mana into a single, desperate attack. The Yellow King admits that nothing might remain of them after this, pleading for Rei to place his absolute trust in him. Oikawa instructs Rei to aim directly for the center of the Veil of the Abyss, hoping a precision strike might end the nightmare. Rei takes a deep breath. He takes a deep breath and shouts his readiness. But the creature mocks their defiance, vowing to crush these inferior beings and their pathetic hopes into dust. Rei decides to leave everything to chance and Oikawa, funneling every drop of mana into a massive dark mine. Oikawa prepares his own power, praying Shion might be watching from somewhere, wherever she may be. As Rei launches the explosion, Oikawa coats the blast with his barrier, shaping it into a devastating spear. The Veil of the Abyss struggles to contain the sheer magnitude of the incoming power, feeling as if it is being struck by three people at once. In a sudden panic, the entity begins to scream, realizing it cannot annihilate the combined might and is struck directly by the impact. A massive explosion rocks the area, and Rei calls out to the blonde mage, asking if they won.
The dust settles.
Seeing the sky finally clear, Oikawa looks back and answers that they did, leaving Rei to offer a silent thanks to the man who stood by him. Rei rushes to Oikawa, declaring that they actually did it, a victory made possible by using Shion's ability and the incredible mana control Oikawa provided. As they breathe, Oikawa's mind drifts back to a conversation with Shion about the potential of combining their techniques to create an even greater power in their arsenal. It meant his own father finally acknowledging him. The memory left him surprised, but he had agreed, and now, remembering it, Oikawa laughs and calls out to Rei, thanking him once more while brushing off the credit as nothing. Then, the moment is shattered as a sudden, harsh voice calls them damned, freezing them in their tracks. But the Veil of the Abyss refuses to fall, mocking Rei and Oikawa for being nothing more than inferior beings. Rei shouts a question to confirm if the monster is still standing, but the creature is only preparing a final desperate surge of mana. Then, a completely different voice cuts through the chaos, asking what Rei thinks. Rei freezes as a sudden surge of dark energy emerges beside the veil, dismissing the monster as a mere disappointment that will serve as a final sacrifice. The strange evil energy instantly consumes the veil, leaving Oikawa paralyzed by the sheer impossibility of what he is witnessing. As the dark energy dissipates, the terrifying presence of Kronos, the god of space and time, finally manifests. And then the darkness clears. Oikawa stares in shock, realizing this monster is the same one Rei fought in the dungeon during his previous life. 7 years into the future, the nightmare is repeating. Kronos flexes his hands, remarking that even in this shadow form, descending to the surface feels quite pleasant. But Rei knows the truth. The aura radiating from the shadow is unmistakably. The horror remains exactly as it was before the regression. Suddenly, the god turns toward him, asking a question about the identity of the Black King on Earth. But before he answers, Kronos reveals a chilling truth. He has been planting every single monster Rai has ever faced. Kronos admits he has been behind every single irregularity, appearing in every monster's path to toy with Rei as if on purpose. Rei stands paralyzed by the revelation. The realization is devastating. Every monster that disrupted the world before the regression was orchestrated by the god. Rei spins around, swinging his sword with everything he has. Kronos merely laughs, catching the blade effortlessly and asking if Rei is a regressor from the future. Oikawa stares in disbelief. Before Rei can respond, the god slams him into the ground with brutal force. If Rei is an obstacle, Kronos declares, he will simply be removed. As Rei struggles to rise, he activates his power, and Oikawa realizes the very air is trembling under the pressure. Kronos reveals his current form is temporary. He is using these disturbances to break the seal of his main body, and the collapse of the dungeons is merely the key to his release. Rei stares in shock as two shadows of Kronos loom before him, their arms raised high. They are done playing games. It's time to break the seal by force. To achieve this, the god begins to unleash an even more terrifying surge of power. Rei demands to know his plan, but the answer is unthinkable. Kronos will use time manipulation to force the collapse of the dungeons. The sheer scale of the god's cruelty leaves Rei paralyzed in disbelief. The rite of descent begins immediately, a ritual designed to shatter the world's order.
The divine power starts to bleed into
dungeon across the planet. Not just in this place, but across the entire planet. As the barriers shatter, monsters begin to pour out from the dying realms. Chaos erupts as people run in desperation, screaming and for help, signaling to Kronos that his repugnant seal is, and, with his shadow's aid, he is ready to claim the power. That dominates all then. A massive surge of energy erupts directly in front of Rei and Oikawa Hikaru. People wonder about the blinding light until notifications flash on their phones, reporting a global catastrophe. Now, Rei and Oikawa face the true god of space and time, a being whose crushing pressure threatens to pulverize their very bodies. There is no doubt in his mind. This entity is indeed the true god of space and time. Facing this nightmare, Oikawa gazes at Rei with a thoughtful, heavy expression. Oikawa looks at the hero, his expression turning thoughtful. Kronos forms a massive sphere of dark energy, calling it a mere warm-up. Rei and Oikawa can only stare in horror as the power intensifies, witnessing the impending destruction. As the chaos erupts, Owono Yuri pulls Aya to safety, while Kai and Kurahashi rush past, terrified by the onslaught. In the blink of an eye, the impact slams Rei and Oikawa against a wall. Kronos merely remarks that his warm-up was perhaps a little too heavy. The god claims he only intended to release a fraction of his mana, despite the terrifying destructive power that nearly leveled the tower. It was absolute destruction. Oikawa trembles as Kronos offers to rewind time to fix the mess, a terrifying prospect given the god's absolute control. But the god struggles, unable to trigger his rewind. Realizing the broken seal has stripped him of his authority, as Rei struggles to stand, he wonders if the god's time manipulation is failing. Rei knows that if Kronos recovers his full power, humanity has no hope. Gritting his teeth, he charges forward, refusing to let this chance slip. But the god of space and time easily handles the desperate rush. Kronos dodges the desperate rush, mocking Rei's suicidal intent in this state, where he is running on almost zero mana, but Rei bites back, noting that the god isn't in perfect condition. Either, he screams his defiance, vowing to settle this once and for all. Even as Kronos channels an overwhelming power, Rei blocks the incoming onslaught with his sword, but realizes he cannot hold the weight for long. His strength finally vanishes, and Rei collapses to his knees as Oikawa cries out in terror. As the god steps closer to claim his victory over the exhausted warrior, the kings of the primary, colors arrive at the battlefield. Oikawa stares in shock at the sudden appearance of his father. Itsuki arrives to apologize. Shina senses a wave of primal danger, warning Hojo Itsuki that the creature before them is far more than a simple monster. While Kiramiya Kusei steps forward to resolve the situation, Kronos watches the chaos with calm amusement. Kronos, the god of space and time, watches them all with interest. The Yellow King, Oikawa Hikaru, demands to know if this chaos is the god's doing. Growing serious, he declares that if this existence threatens humanity, he will not. If this entity is a threat to humanity, he will show no mercy. As Shina and Hojo Itsuki prepare their coordinated strikes, the Yellow King gathers every ounce of his power to eliminate Kronos once and for all. The combined might of the primary color kings triggers a massive explosion, momentarily dazzling Rei with its destructive scale. However, Rei's awe is quickly replaced by shock when he hears Kronos' voice. The god dismisses the attack as nothing more than a momentary distraction, coldly declaring that their time is up. A crushing immense pressure descends upon everyone, threatening to flatten them where they stand. Then, Kronos opens a rift, setting the stage for a devastating ultimatum. As long as he lives, the dungeon collapses will continue, Kronos declares, challenging Rei to find him in the inverted castle if he wants to stop the end of the world. The god mocks Rei's regression, daring him to try and reach him. With the god having retreated, Hojo Itsuki demands an explanation for this mysterious talk of regression. 3 days pass, and the world is unrecognizable. A global state of emergency erupts, as mages struggle to deploy on subjugation missions, trying to contain the overflow of monsters. But even their efforts are failing. Monsters are flooding every district, and thousands are being driven from their homes as the world teeters on the brink of total collapse. Because the primary color kings realize Kronos must be stopped at any cost, they establish a forum to coordinate their resistance against the god. Amidst this chaos, one day, as the members of the holy staff gather, Itsuki demands an explanation regarding the clear connection between Rei and the god of space and time. It is because wants to know the truth of their relationship, leaving Rei feeling incredibly awkward under the weight of everyone's gaze. Itsuki asks Rei to finally confesses the impossible, admitting he has returned from a
World in the future. The revelation leaves the entire group stunned into silence.
Kai stares in pure shock, struggling to process the words his brother just spoke. Ri apologizes for the deception, admitting the truth felt too surreal even for him to believe. While Shiroi finds it hard to accept, Oikawa suspects the truth in Rei's eyes. He theorizes that Rei didn't just travel through time, but actually stole Kronos' power to manipulate it. Then, Oikawa begins to detail the terrifying nature of Kronos and the immense magical drain the creature left on Rei. The theory is chilling. Rei is a man living on borrowed time, stolen directly from a god. Ri nods solemnly, confirming the truth.
The Blue King.
Since Rei had already fought the god in his original timeline, Itsuki asks if he can reveal everything he witnessed to the others.
Ri agrees.
As Rei recounts the nightmare he endured, the members of the Holy Staff are left breathless by his words.
The revelation leaves the group in a state of profound shock.
Meanwhile, Kurosaki Kai begins to tremble with guilt, feeling that his own presence forced his brother to shoulder the weight of the world entirely alone. Aya watches silently, thinking how incredibly resilient Rei has been fighting through the darkness. Time and time again, Itsuki thanks Rei, noting that the truth is finally out. With the facts laid bare, the group finally understands their next mission. Itsuki emphasizes that this fight is no longer a battle for Rei alone, calling for every available force to unite against Kronos. He asks for objections, but Kai, the powerful two-color mage, makes it clear there is none. Determined to protect his brother, Kai vows he will never let Kurosaki Rei carry the world's burden alone again. Ri stares at his brother's sudden determination in silence. A laugh escapes him as he thanks Kai, though he quickly masks his emotion by calling his brother an idiot for being so sentimental. Kurahashi joins in, mocking Kai's lack of honesty, but adds that any man who knows the truth and isn't fired up is no man at all.
Man?
Shirai shouts that gender doesn't matter as long as they fight, a sentiment echoed by Aono Yuri and Aya as they prepare to charge ahead. Even Oikawa Hikaru expresses his unwavering support, promising Rei he will repay this debt, and then thought that he had truly been blessed. Itsuki says he will now convey their consensus to the other primary color kings. However, the focus shifts to the impossible task, infiltrating the inverted castle, which is now shielded by an impenetrable barrier. Even the Blue King admits the difficulty, noting that even dozens of Ranka mages couldn't even scratch the surface of the defense. He asks Rei how he managed to enter the castle in the original timeline. Ri explains that back then the gates were open to anyone with approval, and no barrier existed. Itsuki suspects Kronos is the one responsible for this new obstruction. As Kai crosses his arms, a new thought emerges. If they can break the barrier, they can finally confront the god of space and time. Yet, even dozens of Ranka mages failed, making the task seem impossible until a voice claims destruction isn't even necessary. Turning around, Oikawa finds himself face to face with his father and Shina. The Yellow King pulls Kai aside for a private word. While Itsuki searches for a way into the inverted castle, Kusei explains that a path can be guaranteed, but it will require careful preparation to make it work. The primary color kings must remain on the surface. This means Rei and the others must clear the castle without any help from the most powerful mages. Recognizing the immense power of Kronos, Kusei asks if Rei truly has the courage to face such a god. Steeling himself, Rei confirms he is ready for whatever comes next. Kusei nods, realizing that Rei's resolve is so absolute that he doesn't even need to ask for proof. There is no reason to doubt him. Kusei leaves the ultimate responsibility of the invasion in Rei's hands. Meanwhile, in a private chamber, the powerful kings gather to finalize their strategy. Shina questions why they can't act immediately, But Oikawa explains that the barrier covering the inverted castle is massive, and even combining the power of the primary color kings might not be enough to break it.
Enough to breach it.
Consequently, the Mage Association is tasked with preparing a special tool to pierce the defense, a process that will take 3 long days. Kusei turns serious, reminding everyone that this operation puts the fate of the entire world at stake as they prepare to subjugate the god of space and time. Shina and Itsuki nod in agreement with the plan. Therefore, Kusei stands, ordering everyone to use this time for individual preparations, but as the Blue King looks around, he notices the Yellow King is missing. The Yellow King was already on his way, leaving to handle a personal matter. After his sudden departure, Shina finds the sight of him leaving so quickly to be a rare occurrence. That said, the tournament organizer rises from her chair and decides she should interfere a little too. She clarifies that the primary color kings won't be the ones leading the charge into the inverted castle this time. Instead, she emphasizes that they must use this time to train the others who will actually lead the invasion. Itsuki agrees that it is a brilliant idea. Meanwhile, Oikawa finds himself at Oikawa stands amidst the silent graves, mourning his friends, until his father, the Yellow King, arrives with heavy news, seeking answers. Why his father was visiting this graveyard in the first place. His father confessed he failed to see through the demon's plan, and he apologized for the pain his actions caused his son. Oikawa is stunned. He tells his father that the Blue King revealed his true intentions, that his father has been watching over him even after he left the Moonlight Apostles, clenching his fists as he acknowledges the help he has received. He knows his father was the one who secured his place under the Blue King, but he can no longer just be a recipient of help. He refuses to remain someone who is only saved by others. To truly honor and repay his friend Shion, and he will fight with every ounce of strength he possesses. Meanwhile, over at the Holy Staff's training ground, Kai pushes himself to the brink of exhaustion. Azuma and Shiroi worry that Kai's decision to face everyone at once is simply far too reckless. But the two-color mage refuses to listen. He is driven to level up to his absolute limit before the operation begins, just so he can land a direct hit on that
Monster. Kronos.
Watching his brother's grit, Rei's enthusiasm is infectious, and the others vow to give their all too. No one could hold back now, and then Aya suggested training with Rei, and he quickly agreed, asking her to prepare. Suddenly, Shina and Itsuki appeared, offering to lend a hand to the pair. Rei watched as the two powerful leaders stepped forward. Surprised, he struggled to believe the primary color kings would act as their opponents. Shina noted Aya's talent at the Great Festival, promising to share her magic. Meanwhile, Itsuki proposed a final challenge to Rei. He promised that, if his intuition was right, this fight would make Rei one step stronger. Rei and Aya both accepted the challenge. The kings spent the next 3 days training them intensely. Consequently, the day to capture the inverted castle finally arrived. As the hour approached, Rei felt the weight of the moment. He knew he had survived this far before, but this time, he had his companions by his side. With his friends at his back, he is determined to finally crush Kronos, the god of space and time. The kings prepare tools designed to amplify their mana for a momentary burst, to tear a hole through the massive barrier protecting the castle. Rii and his companions confirm they are ready to give everything they have. Therefore, the primary color kings activate the tools, unleashing a colossal combined power. Kai and Kurahashi watch in awe as the intensity of the mana builds, left stunned by the sheer magnitude of the king's overwhelming mana release. The Yellow King, Oikawa Hikaru, commands the group to move forward. As everyone unleashes their abilities, a path opens toward the inverted castle. Rii can barely believe the incredible scale of such a skill. Once the path is stabilized, the Blue King, Hojo Itsuki, reminds them that others are handling the surface dungeons, so they must focus all their strength on defeating Kronos. Shina encourages Aya and the others to prove the value of their training, as Oikawa Hikaru declares he is ready. Therefore, Rei takes charge, leading the group toward the entrance of the inverted castle. Meanwhile, deep within the dungeon, Kronos watches their progress through his magic, surprised that they managed to break his barrier. He observes the 9 humans approaching, wondering how many will actually survive the journey to reach him. Not long after, the group arrives at the castle's massive, intimidating entrance. Shiroi notes that seeing the structure up close, it is even more colossal than she imagined, while Kurahashi fears a fatal fall. Azuma warns that they cannot afford even a single careless mistake. Oikawa points out that the gate is closed, prompting Rei to recall how it was already open in his past life. Kai begins channeling his massive mana, determined to force it open. Kai summons his demonic spear, ready to strike, but the ground suddenly erupts in a violent tremor that stops him in his tracks. Panic spreads through the group as the massive shaking leaves, everyone wondering what could possibly be causing such chaos. Rei wonders if Kronos is intervening until calls out for everyone to look up at the castle entrance. Two colossal level 100 statues, Seraphim and Lucifer, loom over them like silent executioners. High above, Kronos watches, knowing the human's first test has finally begun. Without warning, both statues charge and Kurahashi screams for the group to run. But the creatures are far too fast, closing the distance and tearing through the center of the group, leaving everyone in a state of pure terror. The group splits into two, desperate to distract the statues, but Shiroi begins to panic as Seraphim closes in. The terrain is treacherous, making it a nightmare to face these level 100 monsters. But Kurahashi has had enough. The redhead stops running, determined to end this threat right now. He unleashes a cursed explosion. Lucifer deflects the blast with ease, watching as it slams into the castle wall. As the group flees the advancing monster, Ri spots an opening in the massive fortress created by Kurahashi's failed attack. A sudden realization strikes him. That hole might be their only way inside. Ri stops running and commands his companions to stick close before activating Monahan to reach the opening in the inverted castle's wall. Just as Lucifer's strike descends, the group is pulled through the breach, narrowly escaping the statue's fury. Has just saved their lives. Even Kai admits that Lucifer's troublesome statue is a problem. Meanwhile, Aya's group finds themselves in a desperate race for survival, fleeing from the onslaught of Seraphim. Yashiro launches his freezing dust ability, the massive statue's body. The strike stalls the massive statue just long enough for Aya to realize they might have a chance. Yashiro explains that this is only a temporary delay, prompting Asuma to suggest a risky plan to test their luck. Asuma steps in front of Shirai to provide cover, leaving Aya questioning the madness of their next move. Suddenly, Shirai launches her ability, hurling Asuma with all her strength into the castle wall.
The brute impact successfully opens a path into the fortress.
And while Asuma laughs and calls to the others to follow, Aya and Yashiro stand in total disbelief. Yuri quickly uses mana conversion to build a staircase through the breach, allowing the group to scramble inside. Once safe within the walls, Yashiro notes their successful entry, but Yuri points out a grim reality. They are now separated from Rei and the others. But as Yuri looks down, she sees Seraphim staring up at them. Realizing the danger, Aya steps forward and prepares her power, asking if her friends can leave this monster to her. The overwhelming mana radiating from Aya is so intense that even Yuri wonders if this is the true result of training with the Shinamyo. Seeing her friend's growth, Yuri cheers her on, urging her to give everything she has. But the battle erupts as Seraphim charges Aya, while Lucifer pursues Rei, the protagonist. Ri focuses his energy, beginning to shape the Abyssal Blade, a power that looks hauntingly similar to his brother's. As Oikawa watches in shock, wondering if Rei has mastered this without absorbing others' skills, Aya takes her stand. She takes a deep breath and prepares. Her high-level fire attribute, Magic, launching the devastating Nova Prominence directly at Seraphim to land a massive hit, while Rei simultaneously channels his darkness. To manifest the Abyssal Blade technique against his own foe, Lucifer attempts to slice Rei from multiple angles, but Kronos watches the display with amusement. The god realizes he vastly underestimated the strength of Rei and his companions. Instead of feeling threatened, the god simply laughs, finding the struggle quite entertaining. Meanwhile, outside the castle, the Color Kings wait as the battle intensifies. At that precise moment, word arrives that dungeons in Shibuya and Ueno have collapsed. As monsters begin to emerge on the surface, the Hidaka brothers depart to deal with the chaos. With the crisis looming, the two brothers head off to face the carnage, and thinks that he is... Though the group's first priority remains surviving the chaos to reach Aya. Just like the Kurosaki Rei, Aya unleashes her power. Kai and Kurahashi celebrate Rei's victory over the creature, while Shirai cheers for Aya's overwhelming strength. Amidst the excitement, Oikawa approaches Rei. Ri wonders if his newfound strength is the fruit of his training with the Blue King, Hojo Itsuki. He confirms that it is, noting that Itsuki promised him that mastering the 3 basic primary colors would eventually lead to greatness. But it isn't just about his own power. They are carrying the hopes of everyone else. Because of that, Rei and the others vow they absolutely cannot lose. The weight of their mission is heavy, and even Kurahashi is shaken by the sudden appearance of level 100 monsters. Kai realizes this only means Kronos is finally taking the battle seriously. Though separated from Aya, Rei knows they have no choice but to push forward. They push deeper into the darkness, with Oikawa promising that the rest of the group won't be out of reach for much longer. Rii keeps his eyes on the ultimate goal, reaching Kronos and ending his reign of terror. He is determined that everyone in his class will conquer this inverted castle together. After sprinting through the halls for some time, the group's progress is abruptly halted. Ri's warning cuts through the air. Ri shouts a warning to stay alert. A massive swarm of monsters is charging toward them. Kai wonders if Kronos is merely using numbers to stall them, But Kurahashi is just looking for a fight. With a grin, the redhead unleashes a massive flaming explosion, obliterating the weaker creatures in a burst of fire. Now, only one massive beast remains. Kurahashi warns that the heavy lifting is now up to the others, leaving the burden to the rest of the party. Oikawa nods, acknowledging the grim task ahead. But Kai calls out to Rei, warning him to preserve his mana. Releasing his power, Kai declares he has trained intensely to show the true extent of his strength. At that moment, an enormous creature charges at Oikawa Hikaru, but the Yellow King raises a barrier to block the strike. He activates his skill, deploying a barrier to catch the heavy blow. With the defense holding, Kai steps forward, perfectly fusing his mana. He crafts a massive demon spear that leaves Rei completely awestruck. He begins fusing this overwhelming power. Rei realizes this magic is even more massive than when his brother was transformed. Kai wastes no time and hurls the spear directly at the monster. The impact triggers a colossal explosion, prompting Oikawa to joke that Kai's growth is likely due to the influence of the main protagonist. But then, Kai's expression shifts as he turns back toward his brother. Makes it clear that he will never let his brother fend for himself again, demanding that Rei stop staring and keep moving to subjugate the inverted castle. Rei is stunned by the declaration, caught off guard by the sudden shift in his brother's attitude. Rei is left speechless, shaken by the sudden intensity of his brother's words. Remember the man Kai used to be before this changed everything? The weight of those memories lingers in the air. Rei agrees, realizing that with his class by his side, they are finally strong enough to face this challenge together. Confidence surges through the group. If they maintain their formation, even Kronos won't be able to stop them. But the god is watching, noting that his monsters have failed to slow the humans' rising levels. Realizing the threat is escalating, Kronos decides he must strike harder. He turns his gaze to the side and issues a chilling command. Fafnir, wake up. Kronos hopes his new creature will inflict absolute despair upon the mages, but time is running out for the god's plans. Minutes later, Rei finds himself standing before the great staircase leading to the summit of the castle. Oikawa Hikaru asks if the boss room lies beyond these stairs, to which Rei confirms it does. As the moment of confrontation with Kronos finally arrives, Rei's thoughts are interrupted by a familiar voice. Someone is calling out to him, drawing his attention away from the stairs. Rei turns to see Aya and the rest of the class approaching, but his welcome is cut short. They arrived at the perfect moment, but before Rei can speak, a deafening sound shatters the silence. A massive explosion rocks the area, leaving the group stunned by the sudden violence. Rei whips around to see the source of the chaos. And is met by the violent gaze of Fafnir, a level 209 dragon. Kai notes that dragons are the strongest monster species, leaving Kurahashi terrified by the creature's overwhelming level. Rei realizes a monster this powerful never existed in his previous life, questioning if Kronos has truly returned. Regardless of the cause, one thing is certain: if they don't kill this beast, they'll never reach the god. Rei prepares to strike, summoning his abyssal blade to face the threat. He prepares for a desperate clash, but Oikawa, the blonde boy, intervenes by using a rigid pillar ability to stop the dragon's advance. The dragon is halted. Rei is surprised as Oikawa tells him to keep moving forward. Panic sets in for Rei as he shouts a desperate warning. Kusei explains that his father once warned him to never lose sight of the larger picture. The stakes are higher than anyone realized. Kronos commands the very flow of time. Brute force won't be enough to win. Only the Black King, a master of stealing abilities, can truly stand against him. But even with that hope, the reality of the god's power looms large. Oikawa knows they can't afford any mistakes while Kronos recovers his divine strength. Time is a luxury they don't have, and the highest priority is getting Rei to the gods safely. With everything on the line, Oikawa makes a bold declaration. He is betting everything on Rei. The others agree, finding strength in that shared resolve. But Aya turns to Rei with urgency. She tells him to keep pushing forward, noting that being comrades doesn't mean they must always fight side by side. Rei stands silent, lost in thought as the weight of her words sinks in. Kai laughs, declaring that he intends to settle his own score with Kronos, perhaps even defeating the god before his brother can. Rei agrees, determined that this time will be different, but Oikawa suddenly interrupts with a grim warning. Oikawa realizes the dragon Fafnir is already attempting to break their abilities. Rei and Kai push forward, moving past the massive dragon Fafnir, who tries desperately to block their path. Aya, Yuri, and Shiroi immediately prepare their mana, vowing to ensure the dragon cannot dictate the flow of this battle. Everything erupts at once as Kurahashi leaps into the air, telling the dragon that it is looking at the wrong target as he delivers a massive, flaming punch to the beast. While the chaos unfolds below, Rei and Kai begin climbing the great staircase, shouting their intent to reach the top floor. Ryuri knows there is only one goal left, the absolute defeat of Kronos. Oikawa watches them go. Oikawa watches them advance, knowing he is counting on them to face the dragon, while Rei and Kai push forward.
Minutes later, the brothers arrive at the entrance to the final boss room.
Kai confirms he is more than prepared for what lies ahead. A heavy silence falls as Rei faces the reality of the moment. He has carried everyone's hopes across time through his regression, and now, he has finally made it this far. As they step inside, Kronos himself welcomes them to the inverted castle, though his words carry a deadly promise that this place may become Rei's tomb. Kai stands stunned by the monstrous power radiating from the god of space and time. Rei feels a wave of dread, realizing Kronos is far stronger than during the Great Festival. Kronos simply laughs, releasing a surge of divine pressure that threatens to crush them all. That first, we will begin with a small test, Kronos declares, his voice booming through the hall. Rei freezes, recognizing the exact signature of the power that once destroyed his brother. As the attack descends, Kai watches in terror as the divine strike hurtles toward him. The attack is moving too fast for eyes to follow, yet Rei moves even faster. He steps into the path of the strike, parrying the invisible force with his abyssal blade. The god of space and time is caught off guard by the strength of the human's defense. Ryuri knows the blade can cut through even the invisible, and he refuses to back down. He makes his purpose clear. He isn't here to survive. He's here to kill a god. Kronos admits the human's courage is admirable, but wonders just how much Rei has changed since their last encounter. The god notes that Rei's combat experience has grown significantly, finding the sudden evolution interesting. But while the god is amused, Kai is far from satisfied with how helpless he felt. Even after hearing about Kronos' devastating strikes, Kai couldn't react in time. If Rei hadn't stepped in to block the blow, he would already be dead. Then, feeling a wave of intense nervousness wash over him, Kai refuses to succumb to despair, releasing his mana with a single resolute thought. He will never let his brother fight alone again. The god of time and space responds with a chilling laugh, declaring the brothers worthy of testing his power and demanding they fight with everything they have to entertain him. With resolve matching their desperation, Rei and Kai prepare to face the divine entity in a final desperate clash.